Okay, from the top. So, High Frontier 4. We have survived through Genesis and Megafauna and Origins in various combinations, and we have now made it to space. Hello, space. This is what space looks like. You may recognise it. A couple of words on what this module is and this module is not at this point. This is something I've been updating to try to get it as close as possible to what's actually going to be in the core, well, in the game when it's released. So I think this is as close as we're going to get with the files available at the moment to what the full game is going to look like. However, there may be some things missing, or there may be a couple of things which aren't quite right. It's going to be really close, fundamentally. Not everything you can see we're going to be using. So we're not going to be using, we're going to do just the core game, so we're not going to be using politics, so ignore that board. We're not going to be using these 4 Dector cards, which are the Bernals, Freighters, Gigawatt Thrusters, and Colonists. I've left them, I haven't deleted them just so they're visible because they might be interesting to poke through later, but they're not using in this game. We're also not using the Elevators or the Future Stars over here. Also technically not using isotope fuel, but ignore that. We're also not using these boards, which are for the Bernal fuel tracks, and we're not using the big cube, which is the freighter. But everything else is in play. So this means obviously the board, the player boards, your components, and the turn track over here. Okay, so High Frontier. I'm going to describe. So High Frontier is a sandbox game, and there's a lot of things you can do within that sandbox. But there is a fairly fixed narrative arc that you're more or less set to. So I'm going to go through that arc. High Frontier in the core game will last 48 years, 48 turns, or 4 times around the solar cycle. And in those 48 turns, the narrative is going to be in more or less 3 phases. These aren't mechanical phases, but these are things that will happen during the game. For the first phase of the game, we're mostly going to be stuck on Earth, and we're going to be researching patents and technologies, and going through a cycle of researching technologies and selling them for profit, hopefully. This is going to be a series of bids and a series of research auctions, and we're basically doing these cards and taking them into our hand and selling them back to the deck and so forth. When you've built a viable rocket, so the next phase, you'll be using these cards on their white side, which is the low-tech side, if you like, when you build a viable rocket. And you're going to be limping out to sites, so asteroids or planets or moons somewhere in the solar system, to find a viable, valuable site to make a factory. Initially, you're going to prospect a site to find the resources if they're there, and then to turn that prospecting claim into a factory, which allows you to do the next bit. With that factory, you will then be able to build more advanced technology on the black side, which is generally more efficient and better. This more advanced technology will allow you to build a second factory faster. We're likely to end the game. Can I change my colour? Yes, good point. Sorry. That makes myself red. Sorry. I'll change my colour so you can see my cursor. To a factory. We're likely to end the game when we have 2 factories, or maybe 3, just about by the end of the game. Okay, so from the top then. So first thing first is how victory works and what it looks like. In terms of at the end of 48 turns, everyone will have equal number of turns, and then we're counting up victory points. You get victory points in a number of ways. You'll be getting victory points for 1 point for the amount of stuff that you have on the board. So for every claim disk of yours on a site, for every cube you have, whatever, for every one of these you got on there, every one of these on the board is going to be worth a point. So getting more stuff on the board is more points. Don't worry about how you get them yet. You'll get bonus victory points for factories, which are going to be the most important sets of your victory points. This is this track here. Basically, the rarer a factory type is in the game, the more points it's going to be worth. So, broadly speaking, if there's a single V factory, then that V factory is worth 8 points. If there are two V factories, they're both going to be worth 5 points. That does mean if you built all three V factories, then this is worth a total of 12 points, because it'd be 3 times 4 is 12. Yep. So effectively, if you built three of the same sort, they're going to be worth 8, 10, and 12 points as it goes down. So the rarer the spectral type is, the more value, the more bonus points you get for factories. This is going to be the bulk of your points. This is really important to do this. Generally speaking, it goes left to right in terms of rarity, more or less. So the H spectral type is going to be the most unlikely, or normally the most unlikely, or generally more valuable. This has a load of other effects, and this is entirely variable to what we do in the game. It may well be that nobody makes any C factories at all, at which point the C factories are going to be worth loads. Okay. Other points you're going to get by having... Where's my score gone? Where's it gone? So other points you get some bonus points for having colonies on particular sites of scientific interest, which are the subterranean ocean sites like this one, and the astrobiology sites like this one, which are going to be worth some more points. So 1 for an astrobiology, 2 for a submarine. And you also get points, and that's the main block of points. You also get points for glories, which are these chits. And these chits. You can pick up these chits by putting humans out into space. If you're the first person to land on somewhere on a site in this heliocentric zone, then you can pick up this chit and put it on your crew. This chit is always, as soon as you picked it up, this is always going to be worth 1 point to you. If you get it all the way back to low Earth orbit, you can flip it over and it becomes 2 points to you. You can carry maximum 1 at once. You'll notice that there are only 1 in the inner solar system. These will run out, and these will run out probably fairly quickly. The deep solar system has many more. With the core game, you're probably not getting out here, possibly at all. Certainly not efficiently. You're probably getting as far as Saturn in the best case. So you're probably looking about as far as this zone in practice. These are heroism glory points. These are always worth 2 points. These are not really something you're going to be awarded in a competitive game, but nevertheless can be awarded. Fundamentally, these are points for screwing up. If somebody does one of these things, so has a devastating event happen, has a loss of human life, helps somebody else, or makes a massive miscalculation, anybody can nominate that person to be awarded one of these as a catch-up or a consolation prize.
That's why.
It's done as a vote. It's a majority vote. If the whoever is the first player, which in the core game won't change, will break ties if it's shared. These are always worth 2 points, and they just go straight on your thing. Fundamentally, it's only going to be a catch-up. It's a consolation. It's just fun. It's not particularly serious. Don't worry about it. But yeah, so fundamentally that's it. It's stuff on the board. It's very importantly the factory bonus, and then it's glories. With competent play, you will see with competent play you will see that these points are probably going to be equal. You're probably going, like with Origins, you're very likely at the end of the game to be, because you can plan so far ahead, you're very likely for these values to be very close to each other or very similar, at which point glories become really important as a way to break ties. It tends to be, you can plan for this and this there. We're not going to be competent in this game, so don't worry about it. But that's how it should work with, well, we're not. There's a huge amount to take in. So
I'm shooting for the newbie.
Exactly. Yeah, okay, so that's victory. So basically it's 48 turns and points. A lot of the turns are going to be a few seconds long. Some turns will be a few minutes where you go, wait a minute, I need to think about this. So every turn. The structure of a turn is that you can move your spacecraft if you have a spacecraft. You'll notice everyone has a spacecraft like this. These are not the models that be in the published game. These are there's a chap in France who has done these 3D models you can get printed, which I've actually got a set of. They're really beautiful. So these are imported into here as models for the game. So this is a spacecraft. You'll notice everyone's got a unique one for this. So you can move a spacecraft. I'm not going to go through movement until the end because it's not that important. Well, it is important, but it's not. There's a lot to take in, and it's not important to how you actually play the game. So I will I will go into that in a second. So you can move a spacecraft, if any, and you can do one operation, which is this player aid here. You can also do any number of free actions. So the operation, so if you look at these player aids, anything in blue is for an expansion. So in this operations, you only need to look at the top half of the sheet. So you're down to delivery is the thing. So operations are the main crux of the game. For the early part of the game, only the top 4 are the ones you can actually do. So these are the only 4 you need to know to play the first turn, and the first few turns, probably first many turns. So we'll go in those, but I'll pay particular attention to these first 4. So operations, of which there are 9: income, research, free market, boost, refuel, prospect, industrialize, production, and delivery. The first 4 are the ones you can do from Earth. So the first 4 are income, which is you gain 1 aqua, one currency, 1 water from the bank, which goes here. In this module, obviously, we've got counters to do your money. It would normally be a token, but in this case, you may as well use these. Aqua is the central thesis of the game. Aqua is water. The central thesis of the game is that the exploitation of the solar system is going to be entirely reliant upon water. Putting water into space from Earth costs money because it's mass, and water is something you can find from other places in the solar system through mining. Water is something you can break down into hydrogen and oxygen, therefore you can make rocket fuel, and it's therefore the only sort of resource which you can reliably use as a sort of gold standard to evaluate how much things cost. Water therefore is your fuel, it's also your currency. We start off with 6 water tanks, or 6 aqua. I'm going to call it water tanks, that's what it's called previously, but it's aqua. Thematically, 1 aqua is a 40-ton tank of water in low Earth orbit. Boop. It's also the equivalent money to put a 40-ton tank of water into low Earth orbit. It's just equivalent to the same thing. That's up to them. No. So yeah, number 1, income, gain 1 aqua. That's your 10. Number 2, research auctions. So research auctions are how you get cards into hand. Now, we're only using these 6 decks. For these 6 decks, what one does is, let's say I was researching this card. If it was my turn, I could put this card up for auction. This card up for auction. So, an auction is and I could use any one of these 6. An auction is a free-for-all auction. You have a hand size. You've got open hands like that, so you can always see what's in your hand. And your hand is always public knowledge. Formally in the game, it goes to the right of the thing, but it may as well go in your hand in there because it's public information at all times. It's a free-for-all auction, and you're bidding using aqua. There's no structure to this at all, so you can pass, you can raise, you can whatever, and the minimum bid is 0. Okay. This will go round until someone wins. If there is a tie, then the person who initiated the auction wins the auction. If the person who initiated the auction wins the auction, they just pay the money to the bank, and they're the only person who pays. If anybody else wins the auction, then they pay the money to the person who initiated the auction. With me so far?
Yep.
Good. Yes, so there is an ability. There are abilities that override various things. SpaceX ability also wins auction ties above the first player, but don't worry about that. We'll come to it. Okay. When you're auctioning a card, this card will be auctioned, and you're just auctioning for this one single card. This card. Cards have a number of things, for number anatomy, which I will go into slightly later. But what they have is the card's mass and the card's rad hardness. Mass is how much they mass, which obviously is important for space because you have to move it around. Your rad hardness is how hard against radiation they are, which is important because there's lots of radiation on the board. The card will, in the top left corner, supply something. In this case, this is one of the 3 types of reactor, which is neutrons, neutron reactor. You've also got exotic reactors and bomb reactors. Yeah. You then have 2 types of generators, which are E-type and pulse type, which is not that symbol. that symbol and that symbol. This generator on the advanced side supplies both. So it supplies a E and a pulse symbol. These are radiators which give you therms of cooling. The cards have supports. So the supports is a good example. This is a generator. For this generator card to be active in your rocket stack, this generator requires a reactor of one of these two types and 2 therms of cooling. So this card would be active if it also had this card in the same stack, because it needs either that type or that type. And it would also need 2 therms, now a total of 3 therms of cooling, because this needs 2 and this needs 1. So this would need this, and these are double-ended, so this could be on this side. This is a stack which currently doesn't do anything because it hasn't got a thruster or anything else that does it, but it's a card that has supports, and the supports have unsupplies. I will go into that in more detail later, but does that make sense at this point?
Yeah.
So just
what?
Yep.
I don't know if you can answer the question now about
Yep.
like how we choose one side versus the other, because this side just seems better all around.
Well, it's heavier is the main problem.
Okay.
That's mass 1.
Yeah, I saw the 1-2 and I didn't. Yeah, I was like,
radiators are literally light and heavy sides, and when you first put them into space, you choose which side to boost them on. And when they're on the heavy side, if they get decommissioned, then you rotate them, or you can rotate them rather than lose them entirely. Okay.
Dom, for the generator, you have to choose either what's under the rad hard? It's the like squiggly in the bottom.
So it's the supports. So this is the purple symbols here are reactors. So this generator requires either this type of reactor or this type of reactor. The slashes and all.
Got you.
So
but no matter what, it needs 2 cooling.
Yes, that's right. So that generator could work with this one because that one's got that supplies exotic and bombs.
Okay, gotcha.
What you're actually doing with them are these 3 things, which are the most important. So these are your supports. The supports are going to be running these. Your thruster is typically how you're going to be moving around, and your thruster will rely on various other generators or reactors for different things. Your robonauts are what you're going to be using to prospect sites and to refuel. And your refineries are what you're going to be using to make factories. You'll notice in general that the thruster won't have other effects, but the thruster is going to be the most efficient way to move around. There will be other ways that don't involve using thruster cards. The robonaut will do other things. Some robonauts, for example, will have thruster triangles themselves, so they will become a thruster themselves. Refineries tend to be dead weight, and they tend to be quite a lot of dead weight. So they tend to be the thing you've got to hump around to get to the site to be able to make a factory. So they're payloads generally. So generally speaking, these 3 are the most important decks. These 3 decks are what make those 3 decks happen, and potentially what make these cards happen, because you may well have to do things.
Really quickly.
Yep.
Rad hard is inverse or
rad hard is
greater. Or is it greater or less?
You want good values. You want as high a rad hard as possible, and you want as low a mass as possible. Basically.
Gotcha.
That's not entirely the case, but it's the case in vast things. Again, these 4 decks we're not bothering with. I'm going to leave them out because they're interesting, but I know not. Don't worry about them. That's all. Okay. So we'll go into those. We'll primarily go into what these are in movement, but I will do some other things in a second. But fundamentally, robonaut, refinery, and thruster are your 3 main stalwarts. Your 3 things you're trying to do. Your supports, what make them work. Oh yeah, the requirements are like a threshold. So, for example, this is a robonaut that requires a E-type generator. This is a refinery that requires an E-type generator. If you had a working E-type generator, this could power both of these in this turn. It's just a threshold. It's having this somewhere in this chain. But obviously, for this to work, this would have to have at least 1 thermal cooling.
And it seemed like for the thermal cooling, that was cumulative, though, right?
Yes, yeah, thermochemical is, yeah, that's right. So that's the thing, but so everything else is everything else is a threshold. The cooling is slightly different. You need a certain amount for moving and for operations. Okay. So income research. Research is an auction. You're going to bid. Sorry, the other thing that's important. When you're bidding, so if you're bidding on this radiator, that's just bidding on this 1 card. If you're bidding on something that requires a support, what you're actually bidding on is this card and the top card of the necessary support deck. So because this lists a firm, you're going to be bidding on this. The actual bid is for this card and the top radiator.
Oh, wow.
This will bid even if the card can't actually support it. So, for example, if I was bidding on this thruster, this requires a generator of this type. If you win the bid on this thruster, you get this and this generator, even though this generator can't support it. It's always based on the one you're bidding on, which is why you're bidding on this one.
Why couldn't it support? I'm sorry.
Sorry, because that's requiring a pulse generator, and that's an E-type generator.
Ah, okay.
Got it. You're always therefore going to be bidding on 1, 2, or 3 cards as a package, and the package will vary in value significantly, and this is where a lot of the interest comes in, because evaluating that is very difficult.
Yeah.
Everything else in this card I will go into as it becomes relevant. It's all relevant, or at least all the stuff on this side is relevant.
How would you get rid of that if you had that thruster and you say, okay, well, I actually need the other one, but you won that auction? Would you be able to get rid of it?
Next operation is free marketing, which is how you get rid of cards. Okay. So to get rid of to free market, you're either selling a card from hand, or you're selling a black card from low Earth orbit. Oh, sorry, one very important thing. Cards in hand. You cannot participate in a research auction if you have 4 or more cards in hand. So at this point, I now cannot be involved in an auction, either my own or somebody else's, because I've got 4 cards. There can be situations where I've ended up with more cards in my hand, potentially. That's a bad example. That's a really bad example, because that crew card, all the crew cards have abilities which are going to counter some things, and that will actually do it. Yes, indeed. So I can't participate in auctions, therefore I'd have to get rid of them, and I'll get rid of them one at a time. Therefore, the tempo of auctions can be really important. You could well be in a situation where, less so in a 4-player game, but you could well be in situations where everybody else has a handful of cards, and so you're getting cards for free.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Yep. Managing that tempo is really important. Managing the cards are really important, and that's the main thing. Okay, so yes, the value you're going to be buying them for is variable, but what you're selling them for is going to be fixed. That's important, and it also means that there's actually break-even points which are kind of fixed. So free marketing, you're selling a hand card. The card, when you sell, goes to the bottom of the deck. The way you do bottom of the deck in Tabletop.sim, if you're not aware, is if you click and hold left click and you right click there, it will go to the bottom. I found the easy way to actually do it is to kind of overlap, just a little bit, like overlap a little tiny bit, get a single card and do that, and you put it to the bottom like that. You will put it to the wrong deck, don't worry about it. Yeah, it's just a little bit to the right of that. It's just a slightly, oops, like that. I just did the wrong one. But yeah, but like that and like that. You can also slide underneath, and it will do that. Sorry, let me just make a mess of all of this.
Good stuff.
But yeah,
Hey, I did it.
well done. But yeah, it's a bit finicky, but it's the thing. It goes to the bottom. If you really have a difficulty, then just do that and do that. But you know, but it's the same deal. So when your free market goes to the bottom, free marketing cards from hand earns you 3 water tanks. You can free market black cards. Later on, you will produce black cards on their advanced side. If this card goes back to low Earth orbit, to your low Earth orbit stack, which is the one that's currently got your crew in it, then you can sell a black card from your low Earth orbit stack. When you sell a black card from low Earth orbit, it goes to your hand. Nowadays, as of 4th edition, it goes to your hand, and the amount of water tanks you gain are equal to its current value on its exploitation track. So this is a M-type good, because it's got a big M on it there. So if there's an M, there will be at least one M factory, because you will have built it. If there's only one M factory, then that's currently worth 8 water tanks when you sell it. It could be worth 5 or 4 later on. Okay.
And it sounds like you're selling it to yourself?
Yes, well, you're selling it to people on Earth, but you're making a profit out of it. But the point is, you put it back into your hand, it's still your idea, if you like, because in your hand it's an idea, it's a concept, it's a patent. And in space, it's a physical thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. Okay, let me just completely screw this up. Right. Pain in the ass. Right. Okay. So that's into there. Okay, so free marketing. So free marketing from hand, free marketing from low Earth orbit, and that's where that is. No, that's that. Right. Last action you can do. So these are so far the 3 actions, which are all actions you can do for the start of the game. you'll be doing a lot of that in a cycle. So you're going to be maybe incoming, certainly researching, probably free marketing in a cycle to be getting a combination of cards. The other way to get cards out of your hand, and also how you get cards in space, is a final lock action, which is the boost operation. The boost operation is taking any number of cards from your hand and moving them to your low Earth orbit stack. There's a cost for this, and the cost is 1 aqua per mass point that you're boosting. So if I had these 2 cards in my hand and I want to put them in my low Earth orbit stack, that's a mass 2 plus a mass 1, therefore I'm paying 3 aqua to do so. And this just gets moved into my low Earth orbit stack. Okay. The reasons why you may not want to do this. The reason why you may want to do this is it means that it lowers your hand limit, so you can participate in more auctions. The reason why you may not want to do it is that after every 2 turns, we're going to have an event. One of the events is, if you roll a 4, is the Pad Explosion Space Debris, and where you decommission the card with the highest mass in low Earth orbit, not counting crew. So it's slightly more risky in low Earth orbit. Your cards in hand aren't entirely safe either. There are budget cuts that will happen potentially here and here on the yellow section, which will discard a card from hand of your choice. So either is dangerous, but it's slightly more dangerous in low Earth orbit because that can trigger at any point, whereas budget cuts can only trigger in the yellow section. Okay. There's no limit to how many cards can be in low Earth orbit, but obviously there is potentially a risk. Right, those are the 4 actions from the start of the game. Are you with me so far?
Yep.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, I'm going to do movement afterwards, but imagine at this point that you know how to move through space. And you know how the board works. Sorry, you're studying Fractal Card. Yeah, so you have a card in low Earth orbit currently, which is your crew card. Your crew card will always exist in space. Your crew card has a number of things. It is human, which is useful for a number of things, and it has a thruster on there, which is a very inefficient thruster. It also has an ISRU rating, which I'll go into in a second, which is a very inefficient ISRU rating. Your crew card is very useful for avoiding glitches, and it's very useful for a number of other things, but it's for especially having a high thrust, but it's a very inefficient way of doing everything else. Your crew cards tend to be chemical rockets, so they are lower tech than most of these cards. They tend to be the kind of rockets we have right now, as they're depicting a real world thing. Okay, so imagining how to go through space. Let's say we're going through space and we're going to go and we end up, for sake of argument, here. This is Hertha. This is an asteroid. This is a site. Hertha has, I will go into that, I'll go into the thruster when we get to that. So Hertha has a site. Sites are hexagons, and sites have a number of characteristics. These sites have a size, which is the number, so in this case the number is 3. You'll notice an awful lot of these sites here are size 1, which are tiny asteroids. The site has a spectral type, which is in this case M, and the site will have a hydration, which is the number of water droplets. The spectral type, again this way, generally to the right is rarer, generally worth more, but the actual value of it will depend really on what cards you have, because it ties into what cards you can produce there. As in, you can produce M cards at an M site. So this card is an M card, so it can be produced at an M factory, whereas this card is a V card and cannot. You can see the spectral type here, and it's also bigger on the other side. Okay.
Okay.
Right, so when you're at a site, the first thing that you can do at a site is to make a prospecting operation. So a prospect operation is you trying to find resources on a site. To prospect, you need to have a card with an ISRU rating, which are mostly going to be these Robonauts. So the ISRU rating is this symbol here in the corner. ISRU can be from, its in situ resource utilization is ISRU. ISRU can go from 0 to 4. 0 is really good, 4 is really bad. You will notice that all of your crew cards have ISRU 4, which is terrible. Your prospect operation has to be done on a site with hydration, which is equal to or higher than your ISRU. So your crew card alone cannot prospect this site because it's got 3 drops of hydration on there. With me? Good. Robonauts come in three sorts. Perfect. You have missile Robonauts, which have a little missile symbol on there. You've got ray gun Robonauts, which have a laser gun on there. And you have buggy Robonauts, which are there. They each do slightly different things. Missile Robonauts, the thing they do which is different is that all missile Robonauts have a thruster triangle. That means that they have the ability to operate as a thruster by themselves. They're generally a less efficient thruster than buying an actual thruster, but it does mean that you're saving a card, so you're potentially saving another research operation, and you're potentially saving mass. Okay. So, if this card gets carried in your rocket stack and gets carried to this site, and I'll explain how that works in movement, and this card is supported, so this card would need an E-type generator with any support that generator needs. Then you can, because it's got ISO 2, and 2 is equal or less than 3, because it's 3 drops of hydration, then you can do a prospecting operation. Your prospect operation is to roll a d6, and you're rolling a d6, and you're trying to roll equal or under the site's size. So in this case I rolled a 3. This site is size 3, because it's 3m, because you're looking at the size there. I realise it's a really bad example, because I've got 3 hydration and 3 size, but there we go. Is that better? Yeah, whatever. That should be fine. But you're trying to roll equal on the site size. If you succeed, then you put down your claim, which is going to be one of these discs. Claims are worth a point at the end, and this is a mining claim. So this means there are resources there, and you have the rights to prospect them. Missile Robonauts have an inbuilt thruster. Ray gun Robonauts can prospect from an adjacent. If the site doesn't have an atmosphere, which most of them won't. Atmospheres, by the way, are denoted by a cloud symbol. Atmospheric sites are things like Mars and Titan and Venus and not much else. There's a few more, but most of them are not atmospheric. If you're not an atmospheric site, you can prospect from an adjacent space. So in this case, this ray gun here can prospect this site despite not being on it. When you're also ray gunning, you can prospect all adjacent spaces at once. So one prospect operation could try to prospect this site and this site and this site. And these hazard symbols are not counted for adjacency, so this is also adjacent. You're still limited in this case by the ISRU, so this actual card here could only prospect this site and this site because it's ISRU, because it's 3 hydration and 2 hydration, and it's ISRU 2. So it can't prospect that site because it's too dry. Okay. You will notice that the Karen cluster here has because these aren't adjacent. This one here, where this precisely is adjacent to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sites simultaneously. So if you're prospecting this site with a ray gun that was ISRU 0, you could prospect every single site here with one operation. Okay. Don't worry too much about adjacency or hazards, but I'll get into both of those as we go into them. But ray guns, right? Ray guns can do non-atmospheric adjacent sites, which obviously means you're potentially saving actually landing.
Why don't you go grab yourself a carrot?
Last one are buggies. Buggies are rovers. Robonauts, by the way, are remotely operated robotic vehicles, so they're definitely human piloted, but they're piloted by it's like a Mars rover or something else. Mars rover is a Robonaut effectively. These tend to be a bit bigger. So a buggy has a symbol. Buggies do 2 things. Buggies, if you're on a site and you fail the first roll, then you get a re-roll. The other thing is if you're on a site that's a particularly big site, like Mars, where you've got these yellow lines in between them, if you are on this site, you can prospect the adjacent sites that are linked by the yellow arrows. So your one roll, you can prospect, your one operation, you can roll for this one and this one and this one. You're rolling a single d6 and trying to roll equal or under the size. You will notice that anything that's size 6 or more therefore means you will automatically succeed. Okay, so there's a risk reward. It's going to be harder to land on a bigger site because there's going to be more gravity, but the smaller sites, so the smaller sites can be easier to land on, but the smaller sites are less likely to have the resources you actually want. Okay. Right. So that's Robonauts.
This is a really quick
Yes.
sort of meta question, which is over the course of a game. You said before that like the area over here is sort of like a focus, and then in terms of scoring victory points,
Yes.
and then some of the what were these called? Glories become a port. So how important is choosing sites to prospect?
So it's
And how do you? Yeah.
It's incredibly important. What's going to happen is you're going to be finding sites. So through the early game bidding, which you're not going to do terribly effectively the first time you play it, you're looking to buy sets of cards that will either work together, but you're also going to be buying sets of cards that you're later going to be building at factories on certain sites.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a hand that's full of M cards, for example, then I can build them all from a factory that's on an M site. Whereas if I have a hand that's got 1S, 1D, 1V, then I can only build one of them at that site. Which means that I can build more efficient cards and more efficient rockets, which means the next factory I build is going to be faster, and maybe the third one after that, if I get a chance to do that. So that's number one. It's going to be really important. It will be important. Like how much it's worth is only a vague thing at this point. It's really important to see your long-term strategy in terms of the rocket you're building and where you're going to be going with everything that you're doing. This is primarily where the weight in the game comes from, and it's hard. Okay, so it's a thing. But yeah, building a set, so you're trying to work together, but also do that, and it's really about balancing relatively how you're doing that compared to everybody else, and that matters more than anything else because it's a race. Okay, so prospecting. So how you put down a claim. Number two, how you make a factory. So if you have a claim on a site, if you can get a working Robonaut, so a Robonaut with supports, and a refinery with supports to that site, you notice in this case this will require either two different generators or a generator that somehow supplies both. I'll talk about efficiency for card things. That then potentially means a second card, which may think. So this would actually support both. But oh look, this also requires a reactor and everything else, and ad infinitum. It gets more and more complex. But if you get a working Robonaut and a working refinery on a claim of yours, you can decommission them and all of their supports. As an exception here, not counting radiators. Radiators, just exceptionally for building factories, don't count. The reason for that is that you get to use the site itself as cooling, because you can dump heat directly into the soil or using the dark side. Oops, have we lost Dave? Is Dave lost from?
No.
Oh, Dave's muted currently. I will keep going for a second then. So
is NSB. Who's that?
Yes, that's Dave.
That's Dave. Oh, that is Dave. Okay.
So if you decommission a working...
Sorry, I got kicked. Hold on, I'm coming back in.
Yeah, no worries, Tom. If you can decommission a working Robonaut and a working refinery on a claim of yours, then you can put down one of your factory cubes. One of these. Boom. This is a factory. So a cube on a claim is a factory. This factory, when you create a factory, first thing you do is, that's an M, isn't it? So you shove down the exploitation track by 1. That factory is currently worth points. It's worth a point for having a cube and a point for having a claim disk, and it's worth currently 8 bonus points because it's an M factory, and it's the only M factory in the game. Yep. So this will change as things go. Having a factory means you can then later produce things. Oh look, producing things. So, that's how...
real quick.
Yeah, go on.
So you're saying if I can get both of these to a claim, right?
Yep. A claim of yours, yep.
So does it matter what... It doesn't matter what type of Robonaut it is?
Not at all.
All right. And then if I get the Robonaut there first,
yep,
I could claim it and then later get a refinery there?
Yes. So one big choice you're going to be making is about whether you want to be doing a single mission, a single massive mission, or 2 split missions. And the efficiencies do matter. It's generally more efficient to do one single mission, but that doesn't actually mean that's going to be the case always, in particular because it is a race, so it can be better to be somewhere first rather than be somewhere more efficiently. Because you're limited by your ISRU, you'll notice that I don't believe there's any cards in the Robonaut deck on the white side which have an ISRU lower than 2. There might be one with 1. Oh, that one's 1. Sorry, there's only one. That has one that's lower than 2, which is this guy. Everything else has an ISRU of 2 or greater. and that means that if you look at this board now, everything that currently has 0 drops, you can basically ignore for the early part of the game, which is a huge amount of it. It means you're going to very quickly shrink the available sites you can get to.
Right.
Okay. Right. So if you have a working Robonauts working refinery, you make a factory. If you have a factory, you can do the industrialize operation. Not industrial operation, extraterrestrial production operation. I can't read. So your ET production operation. If you have a card in hand, which is of the right spectral type, so this is an M, you can produce this in situ on its M side. You will notice in general, these cards tend to be more efficient. In this case, this is equal mass, but this doesn't require any supports, so it's going to be more efficient overall because you're not going to have more cards that are needed. Some cards also have other abilities, other things, other situations. For example, this guy here, on this side is a Mass 2, Rad Hardness 4, requires a pulse generator and a radiator. Pulse generators tend to require reactors, so this can be quite expensive to carry. Flip it over and suddenly it's Mass 0, it's got the same ISRU, and it only requires a pulse generator. You will see a number of things, thrusters get a lot more efficient, requirements can change, things get better. Basically, black side cards are better. One operation is to produce one card in situ on its black side. I will explain how stacks work and how you produce them to a location, but fundamentally that's conceptually what you're doing. Okay, one operation that I skipped was refueling. There's a reason why I skipped it. Refueling is something which will rely... There's 2 types of refueling. The main thing though relies on your ISRU rating. So, if I had... I'll put it in there for a second. If I had a rocket that was on this site, this site has... You just look at the hydration. This site has two drops of hydration. If this rocket had an ISRU rating, and its IU rating was, for example, 1, in a working Robonaut, or a working card, if I was on this site, I could refuel a number of steps of fuel, and I'm going to explain how that works when I go on to movement, or how you record that when you go on to movement, but a number of steps of fuel, and the value that you refuel is equal to 1 plus the site's hydration minus your ISRU. Which means that if you had an ISRU equal to hydration, so in this case 1 and 1, because it's quite dry, the result you're going to refuel 1 step of fuel. If I go on a site with hydration 2, it's going to be 2 sets of fuel. Okay. There is a little table here. You don't necessarily really need it, but there is a little table here for how many steps you can refuel when you do this. So, for example, ISRU 2 on 4 droplets is 3 sets of fuel. Okay. But yeah, that's ISRU refueling. Again, you've got to have a working card with an ISRU value. It does mean that if your ISRU value is greater than the hydration, you won't be able to refuel because you're refueling 0 steps of fuel. You can refuel from a factory. One of your own factories you can refuel from. A factory refuel operation is 7 tanks of fuel. Which again, it's just a flat value of 7. You can always choose to refuel less than that. I will go into how you record that when we do movement, but fundamentally 7 is a lot higher than 1, which is important. Okay, one thing I didn't mention, if you failed to prospect a site, the site is busted. That means that this site is no longer available for prospecting. The resources do not exist on this site in enough quantities. The site still has its hydration, so you can still refuel from there, but you can't, it doesn't have a V or whatever, this site is no longer existing as far as that's concerned. Okay, refueling. Last thing then, so we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, last one is delivery. So, in this version of the game with the core, because we're not using the freighter module, freighters are a kind of efficient rocket which allows you to carry goods you produce home more efficiently. Basically, you can do other things as well, but that's the main thing. Because we're not using that, there's an operation to abstract it. What you to do a delivery operation is you need to have a black-sided card which is at a factory. I'm going to say this, but don't worry about it too much at this point. Just worry about it later. have a black-sided card at a factory, which you own, and you need to have a number of fuel tanks that you've already created at that factory, equal to, where was that again? The number of heliocentric zones from Earth. So, for example, if there was a factory here, that's the heliocentric zone for Earth is this one, so it's 1, 2 zones, because it's currently in this zone. Yep, so 1, 2 zones, times by 2, plus 1 if it's from a site which is size 7. I forgot how it goes nowadays. Yeah, size 7 or greater, or greater than size. Yeah, greater than size 7. So size 8 or more. Don't worry about that at this point. Basically, there is a way to essentially teleport cards home, or to abstract it by paying lots of fuel. Worry about that when you have it later. It's not important for this part of the game. Right. Questions so far? Any questions?
What's the name of that operation again?
Delivery is the last one.
Okay,
So basically,
gotcha.
these first 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, are the operations you can do from the start of the game and are operations you do from Earth. The next 5, site refuel, prospect, industrialize, ET production, delivery, are the 5 operations you can do when you're on a site in some way, when you're in space. Every other operation on the sheet you can ignore because it doesn't exist for this game. Okay.
Okay.
And so, just so that I'm clear in terms of how it sort of plays into final scoring, you're trying to get together a stack that you can take out to a site that is arranged around the letter, or organizing them around the letters for optimizing what you're getting from that site to build a factory to go further.
Yes, essentially.
Okay.
And obviously that's all relative to what other people are doing and
What
relative to other things. And there may well be more considerations than that, but you'll see. But fundamentally, that's what you're doing. Is you're getting more efficient things, and they're there. Again, in terms of narrative flow, the game is going to end pretty much when... Well, at the end of the game, I would expect everyone to have probably 2 factories, maybe 3.
Okay.
And it's only 2.
Those factories can be, in terms of these zones, they can be anywhere, but ideally we would want to be further out.
So they can be anywhere on any site. So it could be in Sedna if you like. You're not going to get out to Sedna in the core game efficiently.
Yeah.
You'll notice if you look at the solar system. This is the solar system. Round about here is an ice line. What happens around Jupiter is inside Jupiter you have the sun, obviously, and the sun is very hot. So what happens is a lot of the volatiles get lost on the inner solar system. You'll therefore see that a lot of the stuff in the inner solar system is dry, and an awful lot of it is C-type, which is the least useful type. The ones that aren't C-type tend to be S-type. As you go further out, you start getting more exotic types. So if you look around, say Uranus or Neptune, even there's loads of D-types and H-types, and you'll notice that all these are very wet because there's loads of ice. So you're rewarded by going further out by having more resources available, but it's difficult to get further out.
Mm-hmm.
Your first factory is likely to be probably inside the Jupiter zone. It's probably even likely to be in Ceres zone or beyond. It's probably here. It might be in the Jupiter zone. With the core game, you're unlikely to get further than Saturn, so don't necessarily worry about this corner of the board, really. With the Gigawatt Thruster module, you start getting more powerful thrusters, which will start doing crazier things, but don't worry about it.
So a question, I guess another question is that everything doesn't have to start from ELO. Once you have a factory, you could be going from where you built that factory, or
yes. So you'll probably find that you don't have a hand of cards that you can build entirely from that factory. Depends on how well you planned it or how well you bid for it. You may or may not be able to. You will probably find that you will have to either ship some other stuff out or make a more efficient rocketing ship back to then pick up more stuff, boost more stuff in the air and get out. You're going to be the game in general is about exoglobalization. It's about leaving Earth fundamentally. So it's about being more independent from Earth as it progresses. But at the start, you're very tied to Earth, and you're less tied as time goes on. Okay.
So you'll be doing a couple of back and forth trips, and then you'll make a big leap forward.
Exactly. It will go. Every stage is going to be faster. Everything's logarithmic, pretty much in High Frontier, and that includes the the time. We're going to spend the majority of the game on researching, and then a bit of the game on the moving, and then a little bit of the game in the final sprint towards the end. Because everyone's going to be a lot more efficient. They're going to know what they're doing. They're going to know what they need to do to win or to score.
Gotcha.
Okay, so
What's the borders? The border yellow. I see a red border here and a yellow border.
I will do that when we
Does
do
that
movement.
matter?
It does. It relates to this, but I will do that when we do movement.
Okay, understood.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Okay, so every turn you have an operation and you can move a spacecraft, you can do an operation, and you can do any number of free actions. I'm going to list these 3 actions. I'm going to say what they are more than necessarily tell you how exactly they work at this point. The most important one is the cargo transfer free action. Broadly speaking, your player board has a load of stacks. There's a rocket stack, which is really here in practice. So when you have cards, they're going to be here. And fundamentally, they're going to build like you can overlap them like this, so you can see all the important information on the left. It might be useful to actually do them sideways, so you've got more space to build them that way. Yep. So you have a rocket stack. You have a low Earth orbit stack. Your low Earth orbit stack currently controls your crew. So you have a crew of 7 guys in low Earth orbit, which is what this card represents. Your crew never goes into hand, it only goes back to low Earth orbit and stays in low Earth orbit. So if your crew ever dies, then it goes back to low Earth orbit and stays there. As in you get a new crew basically in low Earth orbit. Yep. You have potentially so ignore these stacks because they don't matter for the game. So the other 2 stacks are your outpost stacks. Outpost stacks are tied into these 2 things here, which is 1 and 2. Basically, this is a way to save cards in space somewhere. So if I was going to make a outpost, so I could have a rocket, and I could take my rocket to this site. I could then put down one of these chits on that site, and I could transfer cards to this outpost stack. So these cards are here, and these cards are currently on the rocket. Therefore, if this rocket moves away, then this stack of cards is physically at this location, and this card is physically at this location. Low Earth orbit is physically at this location. Okay. Broadly speaking, the cargo transfer is that you can freely move between stacks in the same location, so when this is on the same space as there, before or after your movement, but not during. Okay. Outposts can be left anywhere, so it can be left in the middle of space. It's a space station on an orbit basically, so if it's onto there, then that's completely fine. You can formally create more than 2 outposts during your turn, but at the end of your turn you've got to be down to 2 outposts. Okay.
Wait, what?
Well, so if you already had 2 outposts, you can then leave a 3rd one there, but you'd have to get rid of one of these by the end of the turn, so you ended up with 2 that were there.
I was just thinking in terms of how that plays out physically, narratively. Like, what is that? So you have two space stations, and for half a turn you have another one.
Yeah,
But you destroy.
I mean, you're making another one, yeah, precisely. But regardless, you went game mechanically.
I got
you
it.
can have 2 outposts and a rocket, basically, is what you can have, and possibly low Earth orbit.
Gotcha.
So those 4 stacks are the things you can move between. So this rocket stack is actually here just for space, but it's a pile of cards. But again, you can spread them out here to see what they actually are. Okay. Right. Okay. Stacks. Other free actions. You can fuel. You will be tracking mostly with this fuel strip, which I'll do when we do movement. You can also carry fuel as points of mass. So 1 tank of fuel can be carried for various reasons. Don't worry about it too much at the moment, but you can. And you can convert between that and actual fuel. You can do a free action to build a colony. So if you have a factory like that. Okay, so let's say I have a factory. Yep. If I get a crew, so if I have a rocket with a crew on it like that, and this crew card gets all the way to this factory, as a free action, I can decommission my crew, which then essentially kills my crew, effectively. So it gets rid of this card. Whenever a crew is decommissioned, it goes back to Leah. So effectively I'm losing this crew. And instead what I'm doing is I'm going to create a colony, which is one of these things, on top of this factory. This is now a factory with a colony. Okay. Colonies are worth points. They're worth 1 point inherently because it's a thing on the board. they're worth an additional 1 or 2 points if they're on a astrobiology site or a subterranean ocean. A bonus 1 or 2 points. So a colony on an astrobiology site is worth effectively 2 because 1 plus 1. A colony on a subterranean ocean is worth effectively 3 because 1 plus 2. The reason why you may not want to make a colony is that if you land on a site in the heliocentric zone as a free action, you can claim the glory chit if there is one available.
Mhm.
The glory chit gets picked up and gets put onto your crew. So this would be a crew. This would be a crew in a rocket. It has to be on a crew. The glory chit goes on the card like this. If this card is decommissioned for any reason, either because it dies or because you've made a colony out of it, this chit goes into your glory stack this way up. It's worth 1 point. If you get the crew all the way back to low Earth orbit with the colony thing on it, you can turn it over and it's worth 2 points. With me?
Mhm.
Good. Right. These ones, they're just awarded, and they're awarded straight at the 2 point level. So these are always worth 2 points if they're voted on, and they can be voted on at any point basically. Someone nominates, and again, if there are ties, the first player decides ties. Right. So that was that one colony. Load glory. You have a couple of felonious actions, so actions which are illegal to do. Normally you can't do these. If you have felonies have to be done by humans. If somebody has a claim on a site, but the claim does not have a human present or a factory present, then somebody else who can commit felonies, which is initially nobody, can land on a site and replace the claimed list with their own. So effectively, somebody has somebody's done all the effort to claim this site, and then someone comes in and taken it from them.
And it seems like that's in free actions, but also in felonies as well.
Yes, it's listed in twice because felonies are an exception basically, but it's a free action to do the actual claim job. Yes, you're right, mine now.
And it looks like purple can do those.
Yeah, so they've got exceptions. There are 2 situations where you can commit felonies. One is you can be this side of the purple crew card, because if you will choose, and this side is different ability. So the Taikonauts can do felonies. Also, if we are in anarchy, then while we're in the blue sector, everyone can commit felonies. So it's a which means it's a thing you can do. So it's worthwhile being aware that that's a thing that can happen. It may not come up very much. The other felonious thing you can do is to kill your crew. You normally cannot intentionally. You normally intentionally cannot send crew on a one-way trip. If you send them into space, you have to essentially get them home. So if, for example, you get them stuck on Mars and you can't afford to take them off again, then you can't use your crew because they're stuck on Mars. If you can commit felonies, you can voluntarily decommission your crew at any point. Yep.
And where's this Kurt
Nice.
Sungrazer?
Sungrazer is here. No, it's one of these. It's one of these over here, I think. It's a periodic comet, and it's somewhere. Oh, it's gone now. Can't remember.
Okay, I thought maybe it was going to be like really close to the sun, and it's like, oh yeah, you're committing suicide by flying them so close to the
Not one
sun
there,
they die.
That's the one. And there's abilities over there. So you are kind of, but that's the thing. So you can put them in situations where they're going to die. That's fine. As in you can keep them running through air brakes or whatever until they explode. But you can't intentionally kill them without that happening. Right. Okay. So free actions. We were there. So felony actions. Glitch repair. One of the events that can happen are glitches. We'll go through them when it happens. But fundamentally, if you have a human in that stack, then they can get rid of glitch tokens for free. If you have a glitch token and you do one of these things which has a red dot by it, then you can end up losing some or all of your cards in your stack. Okay, glitches are bad.
God,
Indeed.
that's bad.
There's also the Martian, which is the last free action, which is a really narrow action, which it's very difficult to see why you'd want to do this necessarily. But if you have a site like Mars that has buggy roads, and you have a crew card on one of these sites in the same location as a buggy that works, then you can, as a free action, move the crew card from one side to the other. it's really narrow. It's obviously a reference to The Martian, but that's what it is. Okay, so one operation, any number of free actions. Some free actions are once per turn free actions, but don't worry about that at this point. All the ones I've listed are not, I think. And then movement. You can do these in any order. So you can move first and do your operation, or you can do your operation or then move or whatever. Okay. Right. So the map. So High Frontier. The map of High Frontier is not a map of distance. It is a map of energy, which is really, really clever. So this is why the planets don't move, because every turn is a year. So in the course of a year, things will actually move around, but the amount of energy over the course of a year, the amount of energy it takes to get to Mars is more or less the same. Okay. When you are moving your rocket, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble a little rocket and give you a good example of this. So let's say I have perfectly reasonable. Right. I'm going to whack this somewhere that is visible and is currently here. Bollocks, come on, do that. Okay. Let's say this is my entire rocket. This is my rocket stack, which is just these 3 cards. This is an unmanned rocket because I don't have my crew in there. I could have my crew in this rocket. The main thing my crew is going to do for this rocket is provide protection from glitches. It gives potentially a more powerful thruster, and it also increases my mass. So it's a bit of a trade-off. But for sake of argument, let's say I don't have that, and this is my entire rocket. This is a working rocket because this requires either this kind of thrust, this kind of reactor, or this kind of reactor. This is that kind of reactor, because that symbol is this symbol. This reactor requires at least 1 therm of cooling. This has a radiator which gives you 2 therms of cooling. Therefore, this is a functional rocket. This is actually a nuclear thermal rocket. It's using pebblebed fission with a Dumbo core. The Dumbo core was something designed in the 70s alongside the Nova program, and is pretty cool. In terms of how this works, this is going to be something which is fairly mediocre in terms of efficiency and thrust. It's actually going to be reasonably high thrust-ish, but it's going to be fairly mediocre efficiency as it goes in. Okay, so imagine this is my rocket stack. On the map, this is going to be represented by this figure. The way you do this on your sheet, I'm going to use this sheet as an example, is you're firstly going to total up your dry mass. So the total mass of this stack is the masses of these 3 cards added together, which is 0 plus 1 plus 2, which is 3. I take my dry mass figure and I put it on the number 3. Like that. Right. This thruster this combination of cards has at least 1 thrust triangle in it, which is this blue triangle here. This is a triangle which modifies, which is what the spanner means, it modifies it. So this is a modifier on this thrust triangle. Okay. So this is the thrust triangle. The thrust triangle has a fuel type. The fuel type is, as with most of them in this game, is a water rocket, which has a blue triangle. This means that I use my wet mass figure, which is this token here. Whoops. And this wet mass figure, I'll get rid of this one. The wet mass figure is the blue one, so this would go here. This is currently here because its mass is 3 and this has no steps of fuel in it. If you look at the fuel diagram here, you've got black lines and pink lines. Whenever you are refueling, you are moving your wet mass following the pink lines to the right. So you're adding, if I added 3 steps of fuel to this rocket, I would go 1, 2, and 3. Like that. Whenever I'm expending fuel, I'm moving the wet mass following the black lines. So this is 1 step of fuel I've expended, 2 steps of fuel I've extended. With me? Got that so far?
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
If the mass of this changes for any reason, you end up moving both of them. So if this added 1 mass, I would move this following the pink lines and this following the pink lines up by 1. This is effectively a slide rule, and it's actually solving the rocket equation, which is why it's logarithmic. So you'll see as things go up, you essentially become less efficient as time goes on. As in, there are fewer steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is 3 steps of fuel, but it's 4 steps it can burn. whereas here is a lot more efficient because it's a lot lighter. You therefore want to minimize mass as much as possible. Right, moving. So, every turn when you're going to move a rocket, you choose a thruster triangle that is supported. This one has supports, therefore I can choose this thruster triangle. I then set my modified thrust. My thrust is this number in pink, and in this case it's modified by my support. So my thrust here is 6 plus 4. So my thrust starts at 10. Boom. If I had, let's say I loaded in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps of fuel into this rocket. If I was in low Earth orbit, my aqua is money, but it's also tanks of water in low Earth orbit. So I can expend 6 steps of aqua to add 6 tanks of fuel to this rocket. If I was in space, I would have to be refueling either from a factory or from in-situ resource utilization, using a refueling operation on a site with an RSIU value to be able to do that. This rocket doesn't have an RSIU value, so this rocket couldn't do that. It could only refuel at a factory if there was one. So once in low Earth orbit, I can move aqua from here to here. 1 tank of fuel is one tank of fuel. It's the exact same thing. Right. So
Can you go the opposite direction?
yes, you can. And you can also load fuel by a single one of these, which is not recorded on here, but it's a single tank of fuel, which would be like that. So it would be basically your dry mass, and you could then convert this into fuel by expending it, and it would decrease your dry mass by 1. But don't worry about that. But the point is, you can potentially produce things and carry them around. Okay, so if I wanted to move, what I do is I follow a little formula, which is up here. So my net thrust is currently 10, because it's 6 plus 4, because it's this plus supports. I would then have the opportunity to afterburn, which is this symbol here. Afterburning will increase your thrust by 1, and there's various reasons why you may want to do this. Mostly in terms of landing on a large site, which I'll get to when I get there. So this would increase your thrust by 1, and it will cost you a number of steps of fuel equal to the number that's on this diagram, which in this case is 1. You'll notice your crew thruster tends to be less efficient, so it costs you 2 steps to increase your thrust by 1, because there's a 2 at the top. Okay, so you could do that. I can increase my thrust by 1 by expending a step of fuel, if I wanted to. Then is modified by your weight class. This fuel track is divided into 5 classes, which is the different shades of blue. The wet mass here is my total mass, because it's the mass of the ship plus the mass of the fuel. So this is currently in the transport, so it's -1 to my net thrust. So this would decrease my thrust by 1. The maximum it can be modified by is -2 in the tug class. You'll notice there's a maximum for how high your dry mass can go, and a maximum for how high your wet mass can go here. Some rockets will have a solar power modifier, which these do not. Most of these tend to be generators, or stuff that relies on generators. For example, find a good one. That's a good one there. This here is a generator which generates power based on the sun. Because of that, it means it's relatively low mass and doesn't require a reactor, but it does add a solar power modifier to your ship. The solar power modifier is the sun symbol. This also has another -1 because it's terrible, but as a solar power modifier. The solar power modifier is listed on the board, and it's based on the heliocentric zone. This is the heliocentric zone you are starting your move in. So this is currently in the Earth zone, which is this orange one here. Therefore, if I had a solar power modifier, it would be modified by +0. If I was starting in Mars, it would be -1. With Ceres, it would be -2. Jupiter, -3, etc. This will be crippling as you go out. You'll find there will be rockets that have very low thrust, have 2 or 3. You suddenly get out to here and you can't move, essentially. But okay. Solar power, and finally beamed power. This is a bad example of that, but there are a number of thrusters, like this guy. They have a little triangle in the middle rather than a dot. A triangle and a bracket. This is the beamed power modifier. If you have access to beamed power, which is a faction ability, which I think is one of the green faction abilities still, or a push factory, which is a factory on a site that has that symbol on it, like Mercury. There's also some more over here. Then you can beam power to it by microwaves, and this will add 1 to your thrust, or potentially add 1 to your thrust. Like a lot of things, that can be negotiated, so somebody else can do it for you, potentially if you pay them or whatever, or you decide that it's a good thing to do. So that could add 1 to your thrust, and I could only add 1. Right, the end result of that is you have a modified thrust, so your thrust currently is on 10, have we worked out? It's on 10 because I added 1 for Afterburner, and I minus 1 because of my weight class. We can now move. So, where this thrust ends up... Oh yeah, any questions on that firstly? Does that calculation make any sense?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, the thrust does 2 things. The thrust will determine how many burns you can move through in a turn, and also how you can land. So at this point, when you're moving around the board, you follow these curved lines. There are curved lines, there are sharp turns, like this one here. So if I was going from here to here, and then wanted to turn here, this is a pivot. And there are circles, which are Lagrange points. A lot of the circles will be filled in with pink, or be filled in with hazards and various other things, or error brake symbols or everything else. They fundamentally work in the same way. If I was to, when you're moving, you follow the line down until you get to a sharp thing. So this one can move down here for free. I can change direction at a circle for free. Right, so I can go in this direction. I can't change direction at a pivot for free, so I can't do a sharp turn for free. And there's various ways of doing that. The number of pink spaces you can enter are limited by your thrust. So in this case, this guy could enter 10 pink spaces during their turn. Every pink space that you enter, every burn that you enter, is going to cost you this number here, which is your rocket's efficiency. This is efficiency 5. This is modified by this, which is 1, so it's not modified by anything at this point. Some of them could modify it by, say, half or quarter or anything else, but in this case it's 5. So every single time this rocket enters a pink space, it has to expend 5 steps of fuel. So if I was going to go from, where was I? Here I was. I was going to go from Leo, and I was going to go to this space here. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this wet mass here would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every time you're adding mass or adding fuel, you're following the pink lines. Every time you're burning fuel, you follow the black lines. Okay. So that's 1 there. You will notice that this rocket can go through 10 burns in a turn. This rocket does not have 50 steps of fuel it can make. As in, this rocket was going through, that was 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This could go through, has the fuel to go through a maximum of 3 burns. Because I had the fuel there, because there's only 15 steps. But it could, in theory, go through 10 burns. These white numbers are a guide, and it makes it easier to see how many steps of fuel you can do. The way this works is just a nice way of calculating it. If I, for example, knew that I needed to go through 3 burns with this rocket, as I've worked out I'm trying to get to, here, and to go through here will cost me 3 burns, then I know that this rocket has efficiency 5, 3 burns therefore is going to be 15. So I can look at my dry mass, and I can go, well, 15 is 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 3 is 10, plus 2 is 12, plus 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16. So 3 burns, if I had there, I would be able to do 3 burns. I'd actually have 1 step more than I needed, because it'd be a total of 16. Just counting those ones up there. Just little calculators to make it a little bit easier to see what you're doing. Okay, does that make sense so far? Because that's really important.
Yep.
Good.
Wait.
Yep, go on.
So what the burns? So what is it? 5? What is it? The 5 again? 5
so
burns.
The number on the left is the thrust of the rocket, which will govern landing, which I'll do in a second, and also how many burns you can move through in the turn. The number on the right is the efficiency of the rocket. Generally,
Well, you cut out.
sorry, the number on the right is the efficiency of the rocket. So you
gotcha.
basically want as high a value on the left as possible and as low a value on the right as possible.
Yeah.
You'll generally
Okay.
find you don't have that. Okay. Generally speaking, your high thrust rocket will be low efficiency. You'll notice your crew thrusters have a very high thrust and a very low efficiency, or a very
Oh,
high
it's
low
very
efficiency.
high.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
9 is terrible, right?
Not very efficient.
Not at all.
Yeah.
That's even worse, you know.
Okay.
Okay. So that's a number of. So every pink space is a burn. I will do hazards afterwards, but so when you move, you're following the thing. So if I was there, say, when I'm moving, I can follow these curves around as much as I want. So I can just keep going here. I don't need a thruster to move, so I can have a thruster 0 and I can just keep moving. I just can't enter a burn.
Oh wait, I think you forgot to say the sharp turns.
Yes, I'm about to now.
Or
So
oh, okay.
entering a burn is that one. With the sharp turns, with the pivots, if I want to change direction during my turn, as in if I was here, and I wanted to move to here and then here during my turn, I can change direction at a sharp turn, but it costs me 2 burns to do so.
Hmm.
Okay? As in, I literally have to pay 2 burns as if I've gone through 2 pink spaces, and everything else applies. However, I could stop my turn. You can stop at sort of any point, so I could any of these spaces. So I could stop here, and then next turn I could just keep moving. So I can then move here without having paid for it. So effectively, what I paid for it in terms of time. You'll notice then that a lot of this stuff in the outer solar system has a ton of these pivots, because it's simulating a large distance between here and here is a massive difference. So it's going to be a huge amount of time to get there. You can shorten that
Wow.
by burning, but it means that you're expending fuel to do so. Right, so that's pivots and burns. There's the 2 most important things. And the Lagrange points. So this is a point where you can change for free. So if I was there, I could move here and move here in 1 turn for free. Because I started here, that's the circle, so I can move out in any direction. So I can move out to here, I can move out to here. What you can't do is U-turn. So I can't move to here, and then back to here in the same turn. There's nothing stopping me doing it over 2 turns.
Okay.
Right, sites. So, if I was here, if I wanted to land on this site, landing will end your move. To land on a site, so if I wanted to move here, I can move here, which would be a Lagrange point. It's a circle, so I can move, and then so I can move out in any direction. So I can move here, and then I can move here. To land on a site, I need to have a thrust which is greater than the site's size. So this has a site of size 1. I have a thrust of 10. 10 is more than 1, therefore I can land on this site. It doesn't cost me any fuel, I just land on there. Okay. You'll notice that the Moon, for example, is size 9, which is really big. Mars is size 10. That means that inherently, this rocket, which is thrust 10, cannot land on Mars because Mars is too big. This will become a problem because you will find rockets that have a thrust of 1 or 2, and it becomes very difficult to land on sites. This is the primary reason for carrying a crew with you, because if I needed to land on a site this rocket couldn't land on, because this didn't have enough thrust, what I could do is I could move next to the site, and then next turn I could choose my active thruster to be my crew card instead, at which point all the calculations can be done with this one. So now this card wouldn't help with the crew because this doesn't require any supports. So this one can only support this one, but it means that basically we'll be starting at 12 rather than 6 plus 4.
And crews can't claim the site or
crews have an RSIU value, which is in the corner, which actually is there, which has different types as well, but they have an RSIU value of 4, which is the worst you can do. So they're only going to be able to claim a site that has, or refuel from a site that has 4 water droplets, which is going to be very limiting as to where you can actually do.
It seems like the big ones have more water though, or more.
Like Mars is big, close, and wet. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, so yes, getting a crew onto them. Okay. Other complexities with yes, that's right. So you're only spending when you go through burns. So the other complexities with landing are lander burns. Sites which are size 6 or more are particularly big and have lander burns. Sites that are size 7 or more have a full lander burn, like that. It's a burn, but it's a burn that's got little legs, like a landing craft. And the sites which are size 6, like Ceres, is a half lander burn, like that. what a lander burn is a burn which you can't stop on. So if you were in low Mars orbit and you were trying to move to the surface of Mars through that lander burn, which you probably don't want to do, and as I will explain in a second, but if you wanted to do this, then you would move onto this burn. To be able to move onto the burn, you would have to have a thrust greater than the site size. So you would only allow it on this burn if you had a thrust of 11, and you would have to continue your move onto one of the attached sites. So it means that basically landing on a large site is less efficient. You're going to have to spend fuel to do so, whereas you won't have to spend fuel to land on a small site. Does that make sense? Otherwise it works like a burn. So yeah, burn you can't stop on. Lander burns are also used when taking off, which is going to be really important because that's how you get stuck on Mars. So if you're going to take off, you'd also need to have a thrust which is greater than the site size, and on a particular large site like Mars, you're going to have to move through a lander burn. That means that you may have to use your crew thruster, for example, which has in some cases, a very high thrust, but it also has very low efficiency, which means you may need a lot more fuel on that site to be able to take off. Again, you can't stop on a lander burn, so a move will go to there and then go to there and stop, or keep going, depending if it can or not. Normally, for the sake of a large site, you would normally take off and then stop in low Mars orbit, and then exchange next turn you swap for a more efficient thruster to move out. With me so far?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Right, so hazards and radiation. On the map there are these skull and crossbones. These are hazards. If your stack moves into a hazard, you have to roll a die. If you roll a die, there's a die here that's labelled as a hate die. It's a hate die for a reason. It's a d6, and on the d6 there is a explosion, which I didn't manage to roll. If you will inevitably roll the explosion whenever you test it. So there's a 1 in 6 chance of rolling an explosion. If you roll into a hazard and you roll, sorry, if you go into a hazard here like that, and you roll the explosion, your entire stack is decommissioned and immediately destroyed. When cards are decommissioned, they go into your hand. When crew are decommissioned, they go into Leo. So the end result is that you spent a lot of time building up this rocket, you've taken it out to a hazard, and you've lost it all. Before you make this die roll, you can choose to do failure is not an option, which is expending 4 aqua. If you expend 4 aqua before you make the dice roll, you don't have to make the dice roll. 4 aqua is an awful lot, and this is a huge deciding how much risk you want to accept is a huge part of the game. It's 4 aqua, so it's 4 aqua you're expending from your hand. Thematically, what you're doing is you're paying a team of programmers back on Earth to do this difficult maneuver, essentially, in some way. Right. So yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Under that, the point is 4 aqua is a lot, and 4 aqua is a trade-off you don't want to make.
And that
Yep.
And that price has to come from that.
Yeah, it's from your actual money.
Okay.
It's not something you're carrying on the rocket, it is your actual money, and you won't want to do it. But fundamentally, the trade-off between how much risk you accept and how efficient you are, how fast you are, is what's important. Okay, hazards. There are also aerobrakes. So sites that have atmospheres have these aerobrake symbols, which are little parachutes. You will notice there's also one going back to low Earth orbit, using the Earth's atmosphere to slow you down. Actually, about 3. Aerobrakes allow you to... so aerobrakes work the same way as hazards. So if you go into an aerobrake space, you would roll a die. You can choose to avoid rolling the die by paying 4 aqua. The important thing again is you're paying that cost, or deciding whether to pay that cost before you roll the dice. That's really important. So they work the same way. The difference with aerobrakes is that for the purposes of landing, they treat the site size as being 0. So if you were in Mars, you can use the atmosphere to slow you down and parachute down to the surface, at which point you can follow an aerobrake and land there for free, essentially. You will notice that this route has an aerobrake and then a hazard, and then you land. This route just has an aerobrake. This route also has more water. This route has less water. Mars is a bit of a trap, because Mars can be difficult to get off. Mars is good for making colonies, but C-type resources are the least effective. Mars is also very easy to reach in general, but it's inefficient and yeah, dangerous basically. Okay, hazards and air brakes. These are space elevators. Don't worry about them. Not in the game. These are anything else. So hazards, air brakes, radiation, and flybys are the other one. Oh yeah, half lander burns. Sorry, before I mention that, half lander burns. If you do a half lander burn, then you expend it. It's exactly the same as a burn, except you're spending half the fuel to do it. I forget which way you round it. I think you round it down. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Believe it's rounded down. I think it's in your favour essentially. So if I were to move this rocket into there, I'm spending 2 steps of fuel. I will check out whether it's up or down, but I'm pretty certain it's down. Anyway, right, that was underburns. Flybys. So you'll notice, for example, here is a Martian flyby. If I had my rocket and I was following this blue path, incidentally, there are coloured routes. These coloured routes are suggested routes. They have signposts on them which have a number of burns on them. So in this case, this red route has listed 3. It means from Leo there are 3 burns to get to Mars, because it's one burn there, one burn there, one burn there, pivot, at which point you wait, you then go up here, this 3rd burn, you then do low margin orbit, and then you either take the aerobrake route or the aerobrake route, and you land on Mars with 3 burns. Okay. The flybys are these, and these are free burns you make during the turn. So if I enter this flyby, so if I create my rocket and I've got, modified thrust of 10, I can do 10 burns this turn. I do 1 burn, I then get the flyby. This then means I can make another burn for free this turn. So I could, for example, go in this direction, following the blue line. This burn I don't pay for because I've got this burn here, because I've got the flyby there. Most flybys are +1, so like the Moon gives you +1. Some flybys, like Venus, gives you +2. Jupiter will give you +4 if you get through to there. This means that you can do slingshots. So you can, for example, go to Jupiter and then use Jupiter's gravity to accelerate you onto Saturn, and potentially use Saturn's gravity to accelerate on further if you like. Those bonus burns can't be used. They don't add to your thrust. They are bonus burns you can spend during movement for this turn. So they're not adding to your thrust. They don't help you getting into a site, but they do pay for your movement during the turn. Okay. They're not. The flybys aren't anything to do with the colour routes. The colour routes are just a suggestion. They're a way of making the board easier to pass. As in, these are generally good sites to go to, and these tell you a route to use to get to them. They're not necessarily the most efficient route, but they're a route, if you like, and they're a way of doing it. There's a yellow route there, green route, blue route, purple route, whatever. Okay, last thing is radiation. Radiation are these things here. Whenever you move into a radiation symbol, you notice radiation symbols are also circles, so you can move in any direction. The radiation symbols, what you do is you make a radiation roll. Radiation rolls can't be avoided if failure is not an option. Your radiation roll is 1d6 minus your calculated net thrust for this turn. So in this case I'll be rolling 1d6 minus 10, which would be a minus number, therefore I'll be absolutely fine and safe this turn. If my thrust is very low, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. When you do the radiation roll, you roll dice, you minus your modified thrust, so let's say my thrust was 1, that's a total of 5. Anything which has a rad hardness which is lower than 5 will get decommissioned. So in this case, if my thrust was 1, then I'm looking at 5, at which point this would not be decommissioned because it's rad harder 7, this would not be decommissioned because rad harder 6, this one would be decommissioned, so this would then go into my hand because it's been decommissioned. This would then mean that this this thruster no longer has supports. This thruster can no longer move because it's no longer an active thruster. Okay. So you no longer have an active thruster, it's no longer working because it has lost its radiator to do that. This rocket is now stuck on that space or whatever radiation space we were on. This radiation is worse in the red sector when the turn counter goes around to red because you add +2 to it. But again, the calculation is currently on on here, essentially. There are radiation belts around Earth, there are radiation belts around the Sun, there are radiation belts around Jupiter, and that's more or less it. There's some around Saturn and the outer planets, but fundamentally that's kind of it. Again, you can't avoid that by paying failure is not an option, but you can avoid it by having a thruster which is fast enough. What that does mean is that you could, for example, move to that spot with a low thrust, high efficiency thruster. You could then wait for the next turn. You could switch over to a high thrust crew thruster to move to there. You could then stop there, and then next turn you could shift back to your high efficiency thruster to move there. It's obviously taking you 3 turns to get 2 through 2 burns, but it means that you've done so safely. And again, it's the trade-off between efficiency and risk. How much risk am I willing to take? How much can I afford to take here and to do the thing? Okay. Right. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Good. So that is fundamentally the board. That's how the board works. That's how sites work. I've done landing, done air brakes. I've done those. We've done the site locations. Are we done? Are we almost done? Oh yeah, the comments. That's right. So these colour symbols are periodic comments. These are comets which are have a high degree of eccentricity. So most of everything on the board is in the same plane as everything else, because it mostly is. It's all orbiting the sun in a fairly regular way, either a circle or an ellipse or very close to a circle. The comets are not. They're on these highly elliptical trajectories. This is madness. So these are the highly elliptical trajectories. That means they're only available at certain points during the year. You can only enter these spaces when the turn track is in that colour. This also applies to these here, these particular asteroids. It also more relevantly applies to the Venus flyby. You can only use this flyby if the turn track is in blue. Right. Anything else that matters? Not really. We'll do events as they come, because glitches and things will happen. You've got your thrusts, you've got your pivots, you've got your operations, you know how to do that. Again, you know how scoring works. The scoring is stuff on the board, plus your factory scoring, plus glory. What's going to happen in general terms is that early on, these 3 points of glory are an awful lot easier to claim than the rest of them. So if you can, so it is possible, especially with some efficient thrusters, to get out and claim some or all of these in the early game. It's going to cost you to do that, so it's a question of whether you can afford to do that. But they will go, and there's only one of these in each section, therefore they're going to go and be gone. Therefore they won't be available for other people to claim. Oh yes, last thing was taking off, factory assisted takeoff. If you have a factory on a site, you can use the factory to either land on that site or to take off that site. That's a bad example. This is a better example. That site, that one there, that is a size 3 site. If there was a factory on this site, then I can treat this, if I had my factory on this site, I could treat this factory as if it was size 0 by using my factory assisted takeoff. That is a hazard roll, so it's again something you can pay. You can pay failure is not an option, so you can pay 4 water tanks, or 4 aqua rather, to not make the dice roll. But if you do, then if you either make the dice roll or pay the dice roll, then you can take off there as if it was size 0. So if you had a thrust of 1, you can still take off this side, which can be important for getting products that you created there home, or to somewhere else that's useful. That was that one. That was that one. Using somebody else's factory, either for an assisted takeoff or for refueling, is a felonious action. So it's something which you can do if you have access to felonies. But otherwise, that's kind of it. And I think that's kind of everything. So yeah, that's the game. What will happen? That will go around. We'll go around this cycle, and we'll cause events. This cycle, whenever we pass this seniority thing, we'll lose one of these. When the final one of these is discarded, that is the end of the game, and everyone will have had 48 turns, and we will score. Right. we are essentially ready to go. That is the teach. How comfortable are you with going now? Is there any massive questions that are outlined?
Pretty good.
Good. Oops, Matt's actually lost.
Yeah, that was
Oh no.
weird.
As he rage
I'm coming right back. I have no clue what happened.
That's fine.
I think it didn't like me pressing a certain combination of keys at the same time or something.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah, that's weird.
I'm gonna grab a cup of water.
Yep, no worries still. Now would be a good
Oh,
time.
looks like some other people are also playing High Frontier 4 right now.
Good.
Wow, there's a lot of people playing it. That's yeah, I mean that's a lot more approachable than I thought it was gonna be.
I mean, this is just a core game, right? There's much
Yeah.
more to unpack.
I mean, again, the difficulty is going to be in things like the card combinations and also trying to work out where you can go, what you're doing.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can start to grasp that. I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab some.
Yeah, no worries
tea.
still. Obviously, let me know when people are ready. $12 per disc.
Hello.
Oh,
I'm back. Sorry.
that's all right. I think we're still waiting for Matt. Yeah. When Matt comes back, we'll begin. So the crews are randomly distributed. When you get a crew card, you will choose which side you want to use. The side will determine the first player and will determine your faction ability. And the faction abilities will differ. In fact, I'll run through now just because we're here. These are sort of the basic sides. NASA, every time anybody performs a boost operation, they earn 1 aqua. The UN starts the game with +2 aqua, and who's also going to be the first player because they start with A. Shimazu doesn't have a thruster on the card, but also doesn't have a hand limit, so they can always participate in auctions no matter how many cards they've got in hand.
Oh, nice.
Green has a power set, so they can give +1 thrust to any spacecraft that has the pushable symbol on it. The Taikonauts can always perform felonious actions, and SpaceX always wins auction ties. The other side of that, didn't talk about dirt thrusters. Remind me to talk about dirt thrusters. If the ISRO, if they're carrying a glory tit currently, then they refuel double. So however many tanks you refuel, you're refueling it double. The B612 Foundation gets your reroll when ray gun prospecting, as well as buggy prospecting. For Anonymous, the failure is not an option, is 3 aqua, not 4, which is fairly huge. Roscosmos gets 1 aqua whenever anybody places a claim or a factory. Nazca, whatever, has a moon cable, so they can refuel an activated dirt thruster at Leo or Homer Wit, so just Leo, with 7 tanks or 1 there. So basically they can fuel dirt for free from Earth. I'll explain how dirt refueling works in a second. And the last one is that this can refuel glitches anywhere, so you don't need the humans on board the rocket to repair the glitch trigger, so you can refuel it anywhere on the board, which is cool. And again, these things can all be negotiated, so you can do them for other people potentially. There's ways of doing that.
So there's 12 different sides?
Yes.
Or 12 different...
All right, I'm back.
12 different factions. Right. One thing I didn't mention was dirt refueling. There are some thrusters which are dirt thrusters rather than water thrusters. There are a minority, especially in this deck. So that is a dirt thruster. So water thrusters are carrying liquid fuel, typically liquid hydrogen or actual water or whatever, but as your reaction mass. Dirt thrusters, like this mass driver, are carrying just mass. In this case, they're carrying regolith or whatever, so they could be carrying literal rocks or dirt, and they're accelerating that out the back. Dirt thrusters tend to be less efficient in general and rarer, but what they gain is efficiency in fueling, because they can refuel in situ, because what they do, like the mass driver, what you're physically doing is you're loading up a bucket full of rocks and then using an electromagnetic railgun to shoot it out the back and to create thrust. So therefore refueling it is a question of sending out your intern with a shovel to shovel more rocks into the hopper. So what you can do is, if a dirt thruster is at a site, as a free action, they can fuel, and they can fuel this one here. They can transfer any amount of tanks of steps of fuel into the ship. You use the black token rather than the blue token because you've got dirt fuel, so like this one here, and there's no limit to how much you can refuel by one free action, which obviously is quite efficient.
Whoa.
Now this is graded, so if you were in a situation where you loaded it up with water and then you added any amount of dirt fuel into there, then the water would be replaced by dirt. As in it gets downgraded into dirt, and it can't get better than dirt unless you discard the dirt.
What about the other way around?
So you can't upgrade it. So you would have to dump the dirt before you put any water into there. There is a step.
Wow.
There is a step of fuel above that, which is isotope fuel, which is with gigawatt thrusters. Don't worry about it. Not in this game. Right, just put that over there somewhere. Okay. Yeah, dirt. So crew. There are some crew thrusters that have a dirt rocket, like this guy. These are not the same as this. These represent hybrid rockets, which are these are for example aluminium oxide, aluminium and hydrogen, where you're carrying a liquid fuel and a solid oxidizer, or vice versa. Do you have any solid fuel liquid oxidizer? Sorry, but these are generally less efficient. So whereas this thruster as a free action can refuel any amount of fuel, crew thrusters as a free action can only refuel one step of fuel. But it's still a free action, so you could refuel a step of fuel as a free action and then refuel a step of fuel as a real action, as a real operation, or whatever.
And where are you doing this? Where are you doing the refuels?
This is when you're at a site. So you're physically, in this case, you're physically shoveling rocks into your into the thing. You're ignoring your hydration. You're just refueling from there.
Shuffling rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Good rockets. They can fly on the rocks.
Exactly. But yeah. So the difference is with the crew. If you have a crew thruster that has a dirt rocket on there, you can only refuel one step rather than an infinite number. Right. So what we need to do is to, if you shuffle this and choose one at random.
What?
So if you shuffle this deck and choose one at random, so if you just press R on the deck and shuffle it. Oh, just that one. What is it? Yep.
Like that?
Yep, totally. And so if you move it to your relevant colour, so you're currently red, so if you make yourself put yourself on the red side over there. This will go into your low Earth orbit stack, so the red one there will be here.
Oh, so I sit there now?
I will put you there, yes.
Okay.
You're now there. Hello.
Oh wait, that's Matt.
Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Let me move back to something more useful. There you go. Sorry, man.
Okay. Yeah, it's all good.
Right, so you're over to there. Likewise, so if you want to move yourself around to the right colour seat, it's all keyed into our different things. I'll do one for myself. Bonk. So I'm going to be green. You now have a choice of which side of that crew you want to use. This is going to be your crew for the game.
I think I grabbed yellow, but I don't see.
Yellow is here.
Oh, am I not yellow? Or am I-
You are currently white. You're NASA. So you're over here. I'll move you. It's alright. I will shove you over to there. And that one. Everyone in place? All in place. Good. Right, so now choose which side you want. So looking at these, so Shimizu is the one that has, you've got no hand limits for auctions, which is great. The downside is this crew doesn't have a thruster. Okay. The other side, sorry, has a thruster and has the ability to refuel itself with dirt fuel in low Earth orbit, which is pretty good. That thruster is not very efficient. It's also not the highest value of thrust, so it's a fairly mediocre thrust as far as crews go.
Let's do the hand.
That is really powerful, but obviously not having a thruster is a real downside. For NASA is the normal side. The alternative is that side. The NASA side is probably the easier to use. You'll be generating water tanks or aqua, sorry, every time anybody boosts, which is useful to know.
Cool.
With yellow, you either have 8 aqua at the start, or you get a ray gun reroll. You reroll when you are prospecting with a ray gun. So when that's in play, which is up to you which side you want. I'm going to be the ESA, which is either power sat, so I can give +1 thrust to any thruster which is pushable.
Wow.
You can negotiate with other players. You can give these powers to other people. Negotiation is you can give people money, you can give people hand cards, you can trade favours, deals are non-binding, etc., etc. It is what it is. That's what it is. If you give somebody a hand card, you can't trade that card again until the start of your next turn. What that avoids is a situation where, let's say the two of us were colluding to research. I could otherwise dump all the cards out of my hand to be below my 4 card limit, research on something, and then you can give them all back to me, and then you can research on something. So it avoids that kind of exploit, if you like. Okay, are we happy? Are we ready to go? Right. The letter that's by your crew, where it says crew, the lowest letter is your clout. The person who has the lowest letter alphabetically is the first player, and is going to be in the core game is going to be the first player throughout. If you're on NASA, then Dave is going to be the first player. The first player surrenders one of their factory cubes, and it goes on the start thing. You will not have this factory cube for the rest of the game. It won't be a problem because you won't use all 7 of them, so don't worry about it. When you're playing in politics and other things, that first player can change, but it can't change now. That means we're going to the left. So basically, the event is going to happen after Shimizu's go, after Red go, and then into a NASA. So it's going to be NASA, and then also to the left and into there. So, Dave, you have 4 things you can do. You can income to gain one aqua. You can research, which is probably what you want to do this turn. I am going to shuffle these. You can sell a card. You don't have any cards to sell, and you can boost. You've got no cards to boost. So basically, it's research or income.
And it's just one turn, right? Or it's one act.
One operation, potentially one movement. You won't be moving the first few turns, and then any number of free actions. So in this case, it's going to be one operation, basically.
All right, I'm probably just going to do the research.
Absolutely. So you choose one of these cards to put up for auction, and the card you choose gets moved to here. Formally, you're allowed to see the top of all these decks. You're also allowed to see the back of the card you're auctioning, but nothing else. So you can't look at the back of this card, say.
Gotcha. And isn't there ways that it comes with the combination? So if I were to...
Yes. So if you were to bid on this one, if you put this one up for auction, then if somebody won this one, they would win this card and this card, because this is
that one.
reactor. Even though this reactor doesn't support that thruster, it means that this bid is for 2 cards, whereas this bid is for 3 cards, this bid is for 2 cards, and these are for 1 card each.
Right.
Where does it say
So
reactor here?
It's just because these symbols are reactor symbols. So they're the purple squares. This requires either this kind of reactor or this kind of reactor, and reactors are this symbol here.
Gotcha.
The orange circles are generators, the purple squares are reactors, and the thermometers are radiators or therms.
So you got 2 generator bonus cards here, and then a reactor bonus.
So obviously, yes, it means that evaluating this package is going to be interesting, because this thruster plus this reactor Like the X reactors are more unusual, so that can be useful.
Yeah.
This is a -3 reactor, which obviously isn't great. But yeah. Oh, two things I didn't mention at all. Sorry, these are new for this edition, so do apologise. Some of these cards have a Pac-Man symbol on it, and some of the cards have ballerina symbols, like this one here, which isn't in this game, but there are symbols in these cards as well. Every ballerina symbol you have in your stack that's active allows you to move through allows you to do one pivot for free during your move.
What about the Pac-Man?
The Pac-Man allows you to refuel from an aerobrake site. So if you stop on one of these aerobrake symbols, which is you're still making every turn you're on there is going to be another hazard roll. You can do a refuel operation from the atmosphere. You can scoop the atmosphere and turn that into fuel.
Oh, nice.
The amount you refuel is up here. It's 5 minus your fuel consumption. So it's a total of 5 minus whatever the fuel consumption is of the thruster that's doing it. This is essentially new for this edition, so it's actually not something I've ever played with, so we'll find out.
So we won't play with Pac-Man?
No, we are. We're definitely playing with it. I just, in terms of how good it is, I've no idea. You'll notice, for example, there are air brakes around Leo, so you could potentially go from here to there, to there, to there. You can't move against the arrows, so you couldn't move directly from Leo to this aero brake, but you could move through the burn, through the radiation, and stop there. To then you'd still make the hazard roll, but you could potentially refuel using the Earth's atmosphere and scooping from the Earth's atmosphere. Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna do the.
Yep.
Oh.
That's right. So you're putting this one up for auction. So
Yep.
everyone is allowed to know this is what's for auction. You know that this one and this one are also going to come with it whenever someone bids on it. You know that this card is an S type, so it's going to be built at an S factory. You know its stats. You can also see the back of this card, but not the others. So you get to see what you could potentially turn it into, which is less important right now, but it's quite interesting.
Wait, we get both these? We get both this?
Yep.
And
so
this?
if you win this card,
Oh, wow.
you get the top the top generator and the top radiator, because this requires one of these, even though that generator doesn't work with that robot.
Right.
Gotcha.
So in terms of strategy with bidding, so you start the bidding. You can start as low as 0. So you may as well bid 0 for the time being. It's a free-for-all bidding. In terms of strategy for bidding, because income is 1 aqua, so essentially 1 turn is worth 1 aqua. If I were to win a bid for a single card and pay 1 aqua to get that card, I'm effectively breaking even with its cost. The reason being that on my first action I'm paying 1, so I'm -1, and second action I could sell it for 3, which gives me +2. So that's then +3 minus 1 is a total of +2. So effectively the break even for a single card is 1 aqua, because I'm gaining 2 aqua over 2 turns, so I may as well have been incoming instead, if that makes sense. That's not entirely true, but it's vaguely true. The break even for 1 card is 1, the break even for 2 cards is 3, and the break even for 3 cards is 5. So in terms of evaluating how much this card is worth, if this card was entirely blank, this card is basically worth 5 aqua to the person making the bid. The person who aren't making the bid don't have to spend the operation to do the research, therefore effectively it's worth 6. What are you bidding?
So the dealer does not have the.
If you tie, then the dealer wins, or the person who started the auction wins. So you have that advantage, but that's it. So no, there's an incentive to outbid you. So how much are you bidding?
Me? Do I start the bid?
You start the bid because you're doing it, but you can start at 0 if you want to.
And it comes back to me, right?
It's a free for all, so there is no structure to it at all. You can.
All right.
Drop
So
out.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'll bid 2.
Who's next?
It's a free for all, so as much as you like.
Oh.
There's no structure to it at all. Until everyone passes, it's a complete free for all.
When you say free for all, you mean I can shout out a number right now?
You can shout out whatever you like. You can shout out any number.
3.
Yeah.
I said 3.
You may want to say your faction or your name just to make sure it's.
Oh, what am I? Shit.
You're Shimizu, I think. And you are
Shimizu.
beast of two, or just or just your name or your colour or any other way of having a identifying you. Just because we're doing it not in person.
Red. Bids 3.
Okay. So the bid is currently 3. Anybody outbidding that? So you could equal 3, Dave.
But-
and if it was a
How
tie,
is
you're
all-
going to win.
So I can just tie it. So I can just say 3.
Yep. And because you started the
I-
auction, you're going to win. So again, if somebody else wins the auction, they pay you. If
Right.
if you win the auction, you pay the bank.
3.
Okay. So currently on 3.
Pass.
I will go to 4, I think.
Oh, it's going to 4.
Mhm.
I really think I want this, which is
So you're going to 4. You're going to 5.
I'm going to 4.
Okay. So I think I'm going to pass on 4 currently, unless anybody else wants to bid more than 4.
Pass.
Is that everyone passing?
Pass.
Good. Okay, so pay for Aqua. So just lose, count your thing down to 2. And then claim this card, and this card, and this card.
Wait, what?
And they just all go to my hand. Oh, right. Where am I going?
Yeah.
Sorry, I went to the.
Yeah,
That's
so,
okay.
so again, the fastest way, if you hover over the card and press 1, you can draw it. If you just hover over it and press the number 1. Hang on, take this.
Oh, yeah.
And over this one. If you take this generator as well, because you took the entire stack, so just hover it and press 1.
Oh, sorry.
That's alright. There you go. So your hand is public information, so everyone can see your hand.
Gotcha.
And we can see, we're fully entitled to see the back of these cards if we wanted to. So that's that. You paid your 4, so you're down to 2. That's your turn. So now on to Matt.
Whoa.
So the turns should be, for the most part, quite quick. Obviously auctions will take a bit longer, but most of the turn, like a lot of the time, your turns are going to be game one Aqua pass.
And a turn is a year.
Yes, turn is a year. We will spend the majority of this first cycle on Earth, if not more. You putting this up for auction?
Yep.
What are you bidding?
Let's start it at, because this comes with this.
It does, which is a
Right.
combo.
So start it at 2.
I'll go to 3.
4.
So obviously you can't bid more than 2 because you only got 2.
Yeah, let's go to 4.
So you're tying up to 4 currently.
Wait.
Go on.
This is the solar powered?
Yes, so this is a solar symbol. It modifies it by -1 inherently, and then you get another modifier, which is mostly going to be minus because you mostly want to go out, based on the solar zone. So it's either going to be -1, -2, -3, whatever.
So Matt, you're at 4 right now?
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to bid?
I think I will go to 5 actually. So you can time me at 5 to win. Or unless I go to
The
6.
minus looks
Yeah, I think I'll
good. I don't know why.
minus. This minus?
I mean,
Yeah.
this is
But that minus is bad, right?
It is
That
bad.
drops that down.
Oh, it's bad. Oh,
Yeah.
then I don't want to bid more.
you want high numbers on the left and low numbers on the right.
But these two together, once you get out into space, these two together could be pretty good.
Yes. So are you bidding 5?
I think I will pass.
Shit.
Probably not. Oh, dang.
So the bid is currently 5. So unless somebody else wants to outbid me, then I'm paying 5 to Matt. Shit. Right. Let's see. Okay, fine. So yes, my turn. So I can then either obviously Matt, you could move all 3 actions, but you don't have those to do, so that's your turn.
Yeah.
So I am going to income for 1. That's now my turn done. Go.
It's my turn?
It is. You presumably want to research.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go with this one. Oh. Oh, there we go. Oh, dang, I put it in my hand.
Put there.
Ah,
That's right. It's done.
thank you.
So this one is going to be with a. It's the 3 cards. It's going to be with a reactor and a radiator.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll say 1.
I'll bet to 2.
Wait, you have 2? Oh.
I still have 2 tanks left, yeah. Cause
Wait, didn't you give Matt 5?
I did, and then the income to add 1. That was
This
my
is a non-match.
Oh, got you.
I'll bid. So if it's 3 cards, you said that's worth of 6.
five water tanks. If it's your own bid, is basically how it's break even. That's actually you've done nothing except for incoming, because you'd be -5 +3 +3 +3.
Yeah. So I'll do it. I'll bid 3.
Uh,
So obviously I can't bid.
so
Pretty much
I'm the
you
only
bid.
one that can challenge you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say 3, I say
So you will
3.
currently win ties. So you can go on to 3s.
Alright. 4.
I'll say 4.
How about it?
Okay.
So you take this guy and this guy and this guy again. If you press 1 on the card, you
Wait,
just take 2.
so this guy too?
Yes. So you get this guy and the top reactor and the top radiator, and he's just going to your hands.
So Oh, I literally just click it?
Yeah, just 1. And if you just hover over it and press the number 1, then it will go like that to your hand.
Oh, nice.
Because you're drawing 1 card, you know. Okay.
Okay.
So that was your. Oh, you paid your 4. So you need to remove.
Oh
your
yeah,
down to 2.
so 1, 2, 3.
That's it. If you now notice, everyone has 2 Acro apart from Matt, who's got all the money. Right. Right. At the end of your turn, we then move this. This crosses an event threshold, so we have an event. Do you want to be in charge of rolling the events, because it'll be your fault then?
So when I'm wearing these, I can't hear you, right? Especially when I'm playing these morning Sunday games. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna be...
Sorry. But do you want to roll the roll the dice?
Me?
Yep, because it's at the end of your turn. We trigger the event, so do that. So just roll the dice, and we're rolling on here. That's 1. So this is 1 or 2 is inspiration. So I'll do this, but the top card of each deck goes to the bottom, and this cycles around. Bollocks. Ignoring that.
You guys are welcome.
Ah, for fuck's sake.
I'm kidding, I don't know.
Yeah, I did this. Sorry. Let's just do that. Let's do that. Sorry, because I'm oh, for fuck's sake. There we go.
Is it back to me?
It'll be Dave in a second. So
Okay.
the top card of each of these sets goes to the bottom because of inspiration. Other things that can happen are glitches, powered explosions, and then whatever the special event is in this area, which can be anarchy, budget cuts, or solar flares.
So I just got the best one.
Yeah, well, essentially, but obviously it means that if you were really looking for the card that was there, then suddenly you don't anymore because now it's the bottom.
So
Yeah.
in this situation, since we're all
So you break it up.
having fun, I said since we're all just having fun, in this situation, I would either be bidding to try and get money from who's got money, or I would just take income to get guaranteed 1 money,
Or sell one of your cards for three money. Yeah.
or sell for 3.
So
Got it.
if you sell hand cards, they always go to the bottom of decks. If you're selling black cards in Lilith Orbit, they go into your hand.
Gotcha.
Can you only sell 1 card at a time?
Yes. Yeah, free market is 1 card. Yeah, the only thing that's multiple cards is boosting.
I already forgot. This does. Whose turn is it?
It's my turn.
Because
Oh, okay.
we're on one. Everyone's had 1 turn, so it's on the day's the first player, and will always be the first player. Therefore,
So, putting the. Do I need to have the full combination? I have to put a whole stack down.
to be able to
Tableau.
move, you would have to have a thruster, which you currently only have 1 thruster here. because
Yeah.
that's the only thruster you have. So you've got no rocket that can actually move. So this is a
Right.
rocket by itself. So this could move right now if you like. You would need to have the rocket for this rocket to be able to enter any burns. And hint, hint, the first thing you're going to do from here is move into a burn. You would need some fuel in this rocket. So if you wanted to, and I'm not suggesting you do, but if you wanted to, you could now move this into your rocket stack. You could move your dry mass onto 1 because the mass of this card is 1 as a minimum thing. You could then expend one of your aqua to put that 1 step to there, and this would give you 9 steps of fuel. So this could then move through 1 burn because this is burning 8 steps of fuel every time it moves. You would achieve nothing,
Gotcha.
but you could do it. You know?
But I should be thinking replacing that, right? I shouldn't be the crew should just go on another stack.
You probably want to be carrying your crew with you because they give you protection against glitches, which are going to happen as you have longer and longer missions in space. So you probably want to be carrying your crew with you, but you may normally not want to use your crew's abilities, or not use your crew's thruster triangle. The exception for that is when you're trying to land on a large site, and maybe that's the most efficient way of doing it.
Right.
For example, this thruster has a thrust of 3 base, and requires a generator, and most of the generators will require solar power, therefore that thrust of 3 is probably going to be more like 1, at which point you're going to need a larger thruster to be able to land somewhere.
So I still need to get a thruster. That's
You ultimately will need all kinds of things. You're going to need ultimately a Robonaut, a refinery, and a thruster to get it there. Sometimes the thruster can be the Robonaut, and the support cards are there to make these work.
and so I've got the Robonaut, and I need to on a refinery and a thruster probably first.
You have a Robonaut that you currently can't use because this is currently requiring a pulse generator, and you've got a electron generator because it requires this symbol. And you've got this symbol. So because you have a Robonaut doesn't mean you have to end up with that Robonaut.
Okay.
So yeah, you're either going to put something up for auction, bearing in mind at the moment you can only bid 2, and so Matt's going to bid you for 3, which means that you can probably get a good deal. The alternative is you can either gain a water tank or you can sell a car from hand for 3.
I guess I just don't know. I think I want to sell. Like I was thinking before that I would want to sell the one that doesn't have the C on it. Which one is it? This one? But Robonaut doesn't have a C on it, right? While the other 2 have a C.
Yep.
And so if I was trying to stay in the C line, I would sell that one and then look for a C for the next turn.
Yes. What you will find is that there are Cs for almost everything else. There are no C refineries, so you won't be able to make a rocket that's entirely Cs. But you can make a rocket which is mostly Cs.
Okay, so that makes that's a sound first to it. So just go ahead and where am I discarding to?
So you put it on the bottom of the deck, the bottom of the relevant deck. Like that. It's alright, done it. And that gives you 3, so you just increase your aqua by 3.
Cool.
And that's your turn. So Matt.
All right, try this again. So if I put this up,
Yep.
then that would do this.
Yep.
Which would also do
No, it wouldn't. It would just do this.
no.
But if you put
Okay.
this up,
It's
it would
only
give you
based
this and
on-
this. So this one is 2 cards. This one is 3 cards.
Okay. Pretty low thrust, but pretty efficient.
Good efficiency, yes. Especially for the white-sided cards, which are generally worse.
Try that out. We'll start it at I guess 2.
So there's no point in me bidding. So
Same.
you can bid, Dave, if you want. The bid is currently 2.
3.
Match at 3.
I mean, will you pay 4?
I would take
I don't
4 for
know.
me, sure. I mean, if you guys want to hand me all the money, you know.
I would
Did,
What?
Did you say he's going for?
You cut out.
no. I'm just staying at 3.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's mine.
Yep, you win for 4. So you take this one and this one. And obviously you pay 4, so you're down to 7. Right, I'm assuming that's your turn. So
Wait, I thought it was 3.
3. Yeah.
oh, sorry, 3.
Where's 3?
Do apologize. Always got away with that. Right, so okay, so that's where we are. That's where we are. So
have a little bag.
yes, you'd have to do that. So that's actually good for me. So I am going to put this up for. Am I going to put this up for auction or that up for auction? I actually quite like that.
Open it up. Like, wait.
Yeah, so I'm going to put Project Orion up for auction. So I'm going to bid. I'm going to bid 2. You can beat me for 3. Currently, both of you can beat me.
What's the max hand size again?
So if you have four cards in hand, you can't participate in any auctions. The exception, of course, is Shimizu, who can.
Me.
Yeah.
So if I have, so I can go above 4.
Yeah.
But if I have 4, I can't bid.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And you will typically go above 4 when you create a factory, because you'll be decommissioning cards, and a load of cards go back to your hand at one time.
And this comes with.
It does.
So yeah, I'll bid the 3.
Okay, bid is currently 3, Dave. I can't.
I'm passing.
All right, so you get it for 3 then. All right, 2, 3. So you get this guy and this one, and you lose 3 for doing that. Good. Okay, that's me.
What is that?
Go on, you can do what you can do.
Is it my turn?
It is.
Oh, dang.
Sorry.
What's Radhard again?
So when you move through radiation, it's how likely you are to be frazzled. The number, yeah, it's d6 minus your net thrust, and then any rad hunters who's lower than that value. So a rad hunter 6 is going to be immune to everything except when it's in red, at which point it's +2. So it depends. Basically, high rad harness is good, but you tend to pay for it with mass. Like this is
Gotcha.
isn't rad hard, but has 3 mass, which is higher than it would be otherwise.
Mommy!
I think so. Wait, so this is to get moving. I need a generator.
You
A
need
reactor
and
a
so
radiator.
you haven't got any thrusters. So you need something with a thruster triangle. So you need either a thruster or a Robonaut with a thruster triangle, and then you need the support for that to make it work. So this thruster requires a pulse generator, which you do not have,
No.
and this isn't, because it's an E generator, not a pulse generator. This one requires a neutron reactor, which that is not, because it's a bomb reactor, and you do not have because you've got an exotic reactor. So you don't have a viable combination visible.
Let's do I'll sell this reactor.
So bottom of the deck.
What do I click again? Oh, you did.
You
Did you do
can't
that?
tell it to another person.
Is that right? Did that work? Wow. Yes, and you gain 3.
I could sell to other people though.
Only by them agreeing, essentially. Like you can't force it on them that you can but you could offer it to me and I could give you money for it. Yes.
Like the reactor that he just threw into that deck.
Wait, so would
I
you
could-
buy it for 4?
4.
Was it that one? Was it that one or was it?
Oh
No.
yeah, I guess you're getting 3 for it.
Which one was it?
I think
it
it's
was that one.
I think it's the
I
top.
think
Yeah,
it went
it
on
was
the
that one.
top.
It was that one. Yeah.
Are most of the X reactors going to have a negative?
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yeah. So X are exotics, so they're things like antimatter and other like metastable helium and stuff that's in interesting states. Bomb reactors tend to be impulsive, so like Project Orion, the one you just bought last term, is throwing nuclear bombs behind your spacecraft to detonate and propel you forward.
Interesting. And it,
Do you want it for 4 or do you want to trade?
no, I
You
don't
want to trade your bomb reactor? I don't know.
bomb reactor for. Alright, yeah, this is a pretty good bomb reactor.
Is it? It's a pretty high mass.
Yeah, but it's got a +7 thrust.
How do you? Does the thrust cancel out the the?
No, but the thrust. So it all dictates. It all dictates where you can go. So from a broader tactical perspective, your strategic perspective, what you have will determine where you can physically industrialize and what you can physically do and what's efficient for you. So the thrust basically means that, like, you currently have 0. You've got nothing with any thrust on it at all, right? If you had that what's it called? That Hall effect thruster there, for example, was your only thruster, then there's no way that you can land on like Callisto, right? So you're looking at places. You're then limited to places which are smaller and then potentially have less resources.
Well,
on them.
if my thrust is higher, I can look at the bigger resource places.
Yeah, so you need a higher thrust than the site size to land. So that's what that's for. But again, it's a trade-off, right? So yes, the point is you're getting that thrust, but you're gaining mass. So therefore, your fuel's gonna be less efficient.
Yeah.
So yeah, are you saying that or?
Matt, do you want it? For what? What do you want to do?
Oh, sorry.
You don't want it?
You want to trade reactors?
Do you want to give me 4 aqua?
You want to trade reactors?
You don't want to give me 4 aqua?
Sorry, Ben.
Ah, dang. Alright.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Ah.
I'm gonna work out. I thought I'd an act to this. I thought I actually worked out. It's like there's a.
Whoa!
So that one. Yes, good. Right, done this properly. It's fine.
Must be 2. Oh, there's 2 of them. That's what's.
Yeah, it's a different X reactor. That's not the same one as the one that was before. Right. Okay. So that was done. So that was your. So add 3 to your water tank. Dave. Oh no, sorry, that was the end of the round, wasn't it? So that's now moves to there. Now in the yellow section. So the yellow section, when we cross this event threshold, there is a chance that we'll have budget cuts. So you'll have to discard a card from hand, and it goes to the bottom of the deck. So just be aware of that. Right, Dave, you'll go.
All right, I'm gonna. Put this.
So
And
this guy, which also means this guy. How much are you bidding?
I'm gonna put it up for
How much are you saying?
2.
2. I will go to 3.
I can't bid because I have 4.
Yep, you cannot participate. You can though. Bid is currently 3 for me.
I'll pass.
I'm at your.
So you're cutting out again. Sorry, what was this?
I'm at your 3.
I matched my 3. Okay. I will let you have that for 3. So you take that and that one. Okay, if you just press 1 on it, she'll go to hand. And a 1 on that one.
Which one is it?
The generator, because it's a generator type.
Right.
It's the wrong generator type, but that doesn't matter. As far as this is concerned. That's an interesting generator, by the way. Like that's a generator, that's a battery, it's the Marks capacitor bank, which generates pulse power but requires another generator to do it. So basically, you can convert one to the other using that one, which is quite handy.
Huh.
Right, and you paid your 3. Yep. So
Yep.
that's there. So Matt's go. So you can't you can't start or participate in an auction, but you can sell a card or gain income or whatever, or boost cards to orbit, which is the other thing. Of course, you can pay to put them into a low Earth orbit stack.
Yeah. I think right now that does that generate the fact that all of this thruster,
Yes.
right, isn't going to work well, I think, with
Probably not.
yeah, so I need to either get rid of the thruster or the generator. I like the. It seems like I could sell my generator. Or no, wait. Yeah. Because this generator needs an X
Yes.
react. So yeah, I want to sell that so that I can try and get a different E.
Yep.
Right. So that's 1, 2. Okay, cool.
There you go. And you gain 3 for that? Good. So I'm going to start a research auction. So Dave can't be involved. Everybody else can. 5 and 8 and 5. Okay, so Matt will be able to outbid me no matter what I do. Do I want to do a research auction now? Hang on, let's have a look at this. For 3. Do I want to do that? Not really. Sorry, making decisions here. Let's have a think about what we're doing with our life. Right, I'm going to bid this solar sail, and for the solar sail I'm going to bid... so solar sails are 0, 0. So they start with a thrust of 0 and an efficiency of 0. So they cost 0, they cost 0 fuel to go into a burn, but they start at thrust 0, which means that you're going to need to be light enough to get the positives on the fuel track. Okay. They're also reliant upon the sun, and they have a ballerina icon. The bid here is going to be 0.
Sold that really well.
Right. What all comes with it? Anything?
Nothing at all. Just the scud.
Wait, there it has a ballerina though.
It does, but that's not a support. That's just a icon. Solar sails are pretty.
Wait, it does nothing.
Well, it doesn't do
right?
nothing because you will get positives to your thrust as well. Because if you're light enough, then you're getting +2 or +1, and if you're close to the sun, because you've got solar mod, the modifiers here become +2 and +1.
Oh, okay, I see. You can slingshot.
You've got to be careful about how you're using it, but yeah, you can slingshot. Also, the card itself is immune to flares and belts, which is quite nice. The radiation hazards. But
Also,
yes,
why didn't we dice roll to move
We
this?
didn't cross the event.
Oh,
it's
okay,
every 2
gotcha.
turns. So yeah, bid is currently 0.
Pass.
So Dave can't be involved. Matt, just you and me. I'm assuming that.
Yeah, I passed.
Alright, I'll get it for 0 then. That's into there. Right, so that's now me. Your turn.
It's my turn.
It is.
Let's see.
And at the end of your turn, you're rolling the dice for the event, yes.
I'll roll it again.
At the end of the turn, I mean, you're the last player, so you may as well manage that.
Okay. So if I pick this generator, I will look at the generator underneath, and I'll get. We get that in the package
You will
deal.
get 2 generators, yeah.
All right.
Why does that,
What?
what is the purpose of having 2 gens?
Well, nothing except it's stuff to sell, isn't it? Or in this case, so the purpose of this card is that you can, if you need
Get it,
pulse
yeah.
power, which is difficult, you can turn the E power into pulse power.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'll take it.
And how much are you bidding?
0.
It's going to come with this guy.
Oh my god.
It's alright. I'll bid 1. So Dave still can't bid because he's got 4 cards in hand. Matt, however, can. Bid is
This
currently 1.
doesn't need a reactor.
Yes, but it's a way of getting around, because most of the pulse generators need reactors, so it's a way of avoiding that.
There you go.
I'll bid 2.
It's currently 2, so you could equal the 2.
Yeah. I'll equal it. 2.
You think about
I'll
raising
bid
that?
3.
Ooh.
3.
If Matt and I tied, then you
Mhm.
decide who gets it, and therefore.
Okay.
I'm not going to raise that, so it's currently 3.
All right, I'll bid 3. Huh?
Just looking at your cards real quick. 'Cause I think I want that though. Like, not needing a reaction is kind of. Yeah, I'll bid 4.
I mean, don't Robonauts need a reactor?
Well, it depends on the card entirely. Some
Oh.
don't. This one does, but not all of them.
Understand.
The
So you
one-
say 4?
Sure.
I mean, I guess 4. I'll bid 4.
Okay, I'll pass it.
Alright, so you're paying 4, and then you're taking both these cards into hand.
Okay.
Again, if you just press 1 when you're hovering over
Oh,
it,
just
it'll-
press.
and hover over that deck and press 1. There you go, magic.
Oh, way easier.
Right, and then pay 4. And
Gotcha.
then roll for the event.
2, 3, 4. And roll for the event.
Now you got inspiration
2.
again, so that's 1 or 2, which means we start doing this, and I start screwing this up again.
You guys are so welcome.
Jesus. I'm gonna get this right at some point. It's not today.
Oh, whoa.
Right, that to there. This one I've already done. This one I've already done. This one I have not done.
That. Is that Dave's hand that's in the way here? Thank you.
There we go. Right, so you roll the event inspiration, that's that. So Dave. So it's important that, so obviously you can participate in auctions. Dave currently can't, because he's got 4 cards in hand. But everybody else can.
But I can sell some e-generators here. Anybody need some e-generators? Get your fresh e-generator.
I'll give you 1.
So you can free market, or you can,
It needs to be 3 or higher.
the other way of getting stuff out of your hand, of course, is to boost it, because if it's in low Earth orbit, it's not in your hand anymore. So if you want to keep it, but you
So
want
would you
to free it in your hand.
to put it into low Earth orbit?
Yep, so that's a boost operation. The boost operation, you can boost any number of cards. You sum the masses of all of them, and you're paying that much aqua, and they go into low Earth orbit. Because of your ability, you then, after that, gain 1 back. Because you gain an aqua every time someone boosts into low Earth orbit, which includes you.
So I just do it for free.
Well, you still have to have the money to boost, and it depends how much you're actually paying into the mass, because you're paying a total mass. So if you were to boost all 4 cards, you're paying a total of 8. No, 9 even. You're paying 9 and then getting 1 back. And you have 2,
Gotcha.
so you can't.
Okay. No, I need to sell some. I need some money.
Probably yes.
So nobody wants an e-generator for, because I'm just gonna take 3 from the bank.
I can't. Sorry.
So obviously the advantage of negotiation is that it's a free action essentially. So if you could get someone else to buy it, then you're making money.
You get a free action.
Without an operation, which is useful. But now we're right. Which does mean, of course, that selling for the free market cost is a bit silly, unless you really need it.
So you could negotiating and selling it to someone that doesn't count as an action.
Yeah, negotiation is a free action, so absolutely. But obviously that means that if I bought a card off you for 3 water tanks, then I'm basically giving you a free turn.
Yeah.
Which is huge. So yeah, that kind of calculus. Right, you gain more money, so it's Matt's go, I think.
All right. I'm going to put up this action.
This is so. The Stirling engine is quite phallic, but the thing is, so the cars used to be sideways. So this image used to be sideways like that. So it's getting worse. But anyway,
So very excited.
it is a very exciting Stirling engine. So there you go. Right. What are you bidding on this phallic monstrosity? Right.
I'll bid 2.
I will and everyone can bid on this. I'll go to.
Except for Miko Man.
Except for me.
No, you can because your ability means you can. Oh, you can't. You can't.
I only
take
have
as
one.
But yeah, you could.
only have I can't do anything.
Will I go to 3? 3's looking quite
Oh,
good here.
yes, 3.
Oh, so you're going to 3, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear that.
No, that's alright. I'm passing then if you're going for 3. So that's Dave.
Dave.
Do you want to outbid him?
No, I'm good.
So if you grab that and the radiator, and that's and pay 3, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to boost. I'm going to take this zero mass thruster and put it into Leo. The zero mass, I can boost any number of cards, and I pay aqua equal to their mass. The mass is 0, therefore I pay nothing. So I'm just boosting that one card and paying nothing. Dave, because of his ability, gains 1 aqua.
Yeah.
So you're just on 6. So I now have these cards in low Earth orbit. I'm now going to do a rocket move. So I'm going to, as a free action, move them between stacks. So I'm going to move between the low Earth orbit stack and the rocket stack, which is in the same area, because I'm creating a rocket there. So this is making a rocket precisely here. Oops, or even here. And then I now work out my thrust. So I'm going to be using the solar sail for this turn, which means my net thrust starts at 0. The mass of this rocket is going to be a total of 1, because 1 plus 0 is 1. Just make sure I know. Sorry, let's work out where I'm going first. Is that okay? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So this is partly as a demonstration anyway, and it's also not a stupid thing to do. So my mass is currently 1, so it goes to there. I'm loading no fuel into it, so my wet mass is also on the same space as my dry mass. So I've got no fuel in this rocket at all because I can't move this down, so it goes there. If I had 1 tank of fuel, it would be there. Because again, you load mass by the pink line, or you add mass, so either fuel or just whatever, by following the pink lines, and you burn following the black lines.
Okay.
So this is my thing there. So my thrust is currently 0. I'm modifying this by an afterburn I can't do. I can modify this by my weight class, which is this class, so my thrust is now +2. So my thrust is 2, because I'm a wisp. I'm in this light blue section here. I count the solar power mod, which in the Earth zone is +0, because it says so on the board here. So that's +0. And then beamed power. My faction ability is I have access to beam power, and this is pushable because it's got an arrow on there, so I can add to its thrust to make its thrust 3. Okay. So this is the thrust. This is the thruster, which has modified thrust to 3 and efficiency of 0 for this turn, so I can move through for 0 cost. So let's solar sail. This guy then is going to move 1 burn, which costs me 0. I'm then going to move into this radiation hazard. For the radiation hazard, the solar sail is immune to flares and belt rolls. It's immune to radiation hazards. So don't roll for this one. I would roll for this one. I would roll a d6. Well, I'll make the dice roll, even though I don't need to. It's a dice roll. It's minus my, which is 5, which is minus my thrust, which is 3. Sorry, that was 5, which is minus my thrust, so it's total of 2. Anything here which was rad hardness 1 or 0 would be decommissioned. I'm not counting this one because it's immune to it. Because this is 3, and because this rad hardness is 4, that means I'm always going to be safe for this. So radiation doesn't matter. I've still got 2 burns left, which will cost me 0 each time. So I'm going to do this burn. I'm going to go through this flyby, so I get a free burn. So I'm going to follow the purple route round. This is my free burn, so I've still got a burn left, technically. I'm going to go to this Lagrange point. I'm going to go to this Lagrange point, and I'm going to go to here. The reason why I can land on this is my modified thrust is greater than 1, so I'm going to land on this site. Because I've landed on this site, that means that I can use a free action to pick up this glory tit, and this glory tit is going to go to my crew, like that. So this will always be worth 1 victory point to me. If I get this back to low Earth orbit, I can only carry 1 at once, then it'd be worth 2 points to me. Okay. Did everything there make sense?
Glorious.
Okay. Well, that's my turn.
So, the move that you did was predicated on the fact you didn't need to have anything.
Yeah, so I can go through a maximum of 3 burns, and I went through 2 with a free one. So I went through 2 burns of my maximum of 3. But every burn I went through, I was paying 0, which is the right-hand most value here. I was paying 0 fuel to do so. Now when I come back, I'm going to have a lower thrust because I'm going to be starting out at -1. So it's going to be slower coming back than I was coming out.
Gotcha.
It helps
Right.
because I got beam power, because the beam power with the solar cell helps quite a bit. Because obviously otherwise I'd be on 2 rather than 3 and all sorts. In fact, I wouldn't be able to take
Right.
off all the way back. Right, that's my turn. We go
We're all sitting here trying to make these big monstrosities, and you like threw a paper airplane at us.
Exactly. So the person I play Harvey the most is a friend of mine. I've known him for a very long time, but he always builds this gargantuan Neolithic monstrosity, and I tend to build these tiny little efficient things. And we're about even, so I think it works either way. But it's just a point of contention that I tend to be maximum efficiency, and he tends to be no thug. Huge things. Right, that's my turn. Now again, the point was that was in either order, so I could have done my move first and then done my operation if I had the things to do that. But obviously, I wanted to boost first so I can have the stuff in space. Other things, if there was a situation where you can't move the same card twice in the same turn. There aren't many situations where you can do that in the core game, but just you can't. Right, moving on. That was my turn, dude.
Mika?
Yeah, me.
Right.
Oh, my turn.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'll.
Don't have much money. You probably want to sell some cards at some point,
Yeah, I probably want to sell something, right?
unless you think you can get away with bidding, which you probably can't at this stage. But
Does anybody want to buy anything of my cards? I want to see if anyone has to offer for
you
anything I
can
have.
definitely do that. I'm okay, I think.
Matt, do you
Can
see anything you
I ask-
want?
On this Mars capacitor bank,
Say that
it
one more time.
requires
I'm good.
both of those generators, right? Does it require those generators?
So this one,
Because
this one produces pulsed power, but it requires an E. So for that one to work, you need a generator like this one.
right, and all that's doing is just. All right, I think I'm
It's
good.
converting. Yeah,
So everyone's good.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right.
So incoming, selling,
think-
or researching is what you want to do. I think. Obviously, research.
Yeah, I'll probably sell. I'll probably sell something. So Robonaut, I don't really need those, right?
You will absolutely. So the whole point of making a factory, you need you basically need a Robonaut to make a claim. You need a Robonaut and a refinery to make a factory, and make a factory is
Okay.
what you're trying to do. So you will at some point need to make a Robonaut. You don't necessarily need that one.
Okay, I'll get rid of this one.
But you need a Robonaut and a refinery to make a factory?
Yes. So make a
Oh,
factory.
because Robonaut will explore it and. Okay.
So when the industrialized action involves decommissioning a working Robonaut and a working working refinery on that site. Right. So
All
your
right,
turn.
I'm gonna re-roll this now.
Oh yes. Yes. Oh no, you don't, because we're not threshold. So we're just to there.
Oh,
Next time,
yeah.
it's every 2 turns. Dave.
And
Okay. Just can't right. Or show up. Is there anything that makes you like go through the deck and choose which one you?
No, that's why you're cycling or your inspiration, and that's the point, isn't it? It's
I'll be right back. I have to use the restroom.
So things to look out for at the moment. What have you got there? You've got a pulse inductive thruster. So most of the pulsed generators require reactors to work, which is why that mass capacitor is useful, because it allows you to convert one to the other. But most of the ones that generate pulse generators need a reactor. This pressure plate is quite a good combo with Project Orion over here. Sorry, Project Orion here. In terms of that's that's a thruster which needs a bomb type reactor. This is a bomb type reactor.
Mm.
That is a powerful combination. This is in fact the classic combination. This does mean that if you did put that up for auction, it's entirely possible that Matt would want to give you a lot of money for it, or you may want to buy it to deny Matt that card, for example.
Right.
But I have 5 cards in hand, so I can't.
Even better, yes. There's no way to do it. So actually, as he made even better, it might be a good time to get it, so he can't do that.
Ah, so that's the competitive page of sort of. I mean, the thing for me is that I mean, I guess it goes back to like, we're like going back to that offer of taking this one, this Mark's capacity, and then combining it with mine. It's like that becomes 4 mass automatic, right?
Damn.
Which is like, this is a free. If I were to make this negotiation, this is a free.
Yes, which also means that money that you give to somebody else is money they're getting without an operation to do it. So be careful about what you're giving them. Because again, if you give them a card, if they sell a card for you for 3 aqua, then effectively they're free marketing cards that they presumably wanted to free market anyway, but you're giving them a free turn.
Right.
So
Yeah.
be cautious about what you're doing. Obviously, swapping a card for a card might be better for your benefit because it means that you're onto there.
So, all right, if I have, I'll give. I'll negotiate. What do you want for the Mark's? Let's go.
He's asking
Me?
you what you want for that, yeah.
Yeah.
For this this thing, the
Yes.
one I got right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's it worth to you?
So
I mean, like 1 or 2.
Yeah, in terms of selling it, for you.
Wait, is it my turn? No, my turn.
Your-
It's your turn.
It's Dave's turn, yeah.
It's my,
Which means
and I'm making it
What do you want for it right now?
like 2.
You want to give me 2?
Yep.
For it right now. I don't know. I kind of like how I got a little thing here with it. I think 4 would sound nicer.
4, huh? I mean, sure, I'll do 4.
Okay.
Just remember that favor later on.
What? That was a deal. That was a. I gave you a deal.
That's true.
Good deal.
Okay, so now you have your actual turn.
And so, can I now I don't have enough money to actually.
No. and you can't research anything because you've got 4 cards in it. So you're free marketing or just gaining 1 income.
So I'll gain.
So gaining income is generally the worst way to do it, but it's the only way it doesn't disturb the decks, which when you know what you're doing is really important because you know that certain cards are on top that people want or whatever. Like, for example, that card with that card, which is a good combination.
Huh. Whose turn is it?
It's still Dave's unless he's finished, and then it's Matt's.
No, I think that's it, right? Because I took it.
Yeah, sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I should probably set up turns on this, actually. In fact, actually, I'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be.
I will
Appreciate
set
it.
up turns, because that seems sensible. Turn order is that one, then that one, then me, and then Mika Man.
Boosting is not a free act, right?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, boosting is
Sorry.
absolutely an operation.
Yeah. So if I wanted to get down to 4 cards, I can boost it down to 2 cards.
Yep.
I can boost.
So it'll cost you 3, and Dave would earn 1, because of his ability. And these go into this stack formally,
Uh,
which is your
yeah.
low Earth orbit stack.
Mm.
So Dave,
Thank
have you game one?
Uh,
Dave gets one for boosting.
Yep, that's his
Yep.
ability.
Did you boost on your turn?
I
Dom?
did, yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I'm in space. Otherwise I'm on the Earth, so which is terrible.
Ah.
Right. Okay. So have a look at this thruster. If I wanted to do the solar sail, then my thruster is going to start at 0. It's going to be +2 for the wet mass. It's going to be -1 for the solar power, and +1 for my pushed power. So I have a thrust of 2, which is greater than size 1, so I can take off. So I'm going to take off there. That's free. That's free. That is 1 burn. That's a flyby, so that burn is free. That's a radiation roll, which I'll roll anyway, right before we're in the red. So that is a 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. My rad harness is 4, so that's safe. If it was rad harness 3, I'd be screwed. The important thing about doing this now is that those radiation rolls, when the event is in the red sector, those radiation rolls are +2, which is horrendous. So he's safe. That was a burn. That was a free burn. This is my second of the 2 burns I can have, and I can now go back to low Earth orbit. Then as a free action, I can take this glory and put it here. So I've now got 2 points. Okay, that was my movement. My operation, I'm going to... Right, you can bid, can't you? That's a problem. So... Yes, I will bid on this card then.
What was it?
And I'm going to bid 1 currently. So Dave can't bid on this, but everybody else can.
2.
I'll match your 2. Anybody else going for 2? Going for 2?
Oh, only me, huh?
You're the only person.
3.
Interesting. I'll go for 3.
Alright, you can have it.
I will. So I have that one and that one for 3. Those are my hand. 1, 2, 3. And that's the end of my turn. Go.
Let's take this right here.
Mhm.
Ah. Damn.
Metastable helium. Yep.
0.
So I can't bid. Matt is the only person who can bid.
Matt.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about this one, this requires an exotic reactor, which is obviously, as you know, quite difficult. Like this one doesn't minus the thrust. It does give you exotic, but doesn't minus the thrust. But it's also an H, which makes it hard to turn into something that's more useful. However, this also has rad hardness of 0, which is really punishing, because that's going to be very vulnerable to going through solar flares or going through radiation. But it's very, very efficient.
I'll pass.
I get it for 0? Wow, okay.
Alright. So you get that one and that one and that one for 0.
I mean, I could bid 1, but then if he goes
Ah!
sure,
I took
Then
2 on accident.
Yeah, I did.
yeah,
Sorry, that one. That's
that'd
right.
be
My bad.
That's fine. No worries. That's done. Okay, that was your turn, presumably, because you can't move anything.
Wait, you got? Oh, it came with.
Yeah.
What did it come with?
Well, 2
Look at
seconds.
my hand.
Oh, because duh. That
This
was-
thruster, reactor,
That's
and then
Fine.
this.
Yep. Okay.
That's
I was thinking just that one card. Oh well.
Right, so that's going to be your turn. So we're going to move this guy. Can you roll for the event?
Roll it.
Yeah, do the end, because you're the last
Okay.
person. Oops.
Oh my
What
god.
have you done?
There it is, right there.
4. So 4 is pad explosion space debris. So everyone who has stuff in Leo now has to decommission their card with the highest mass in Leo. Crew and black side cards are immune. So if you decommission a card, then it goes to your hand. and if it's lost from your hand, it goes to the bottom of the deck. So you've got to do that one to there, and that's there. Oh yeah, when you boosted this, I assume you boosted it on this side and not the other side, because that would have cost you more.
Yes.
That's just it's important with the radiators. Okay, so that's what happens there. I technically, sorry, these are technically in there, aren't they? Because these are back here. So I would decommission my crew thruster as well, which is not a massive problem. So that goes into there.
So if we don't have anything out there, we don't decommission anything.
That's it. Yep. If you've got nothing in there, but again, it's the trade of I'm taking it out of my hand because it's not in there anymore. But on the other hand, I'm also making it vulnerable to pad explosions, space debris. Right.
But at least you don't lose it, is it?
Completely. But you do have to the money which you spend is lost basically to put it up in the first place. Right.
Yeah.
Days go.
So now I still don't have enough. But I don't really want to discard any of this, right?
Yep. Which means the next best thing to do is to boost them into low Earth orbit.
To boost some of it, not all of it, right?
Presumably, because you can only afford to boost 4 mass of it, and you got more than that. But if you did boost one of the ones that mass is 1, then you'd be paying 1 and then gaining 1 because of your ability. So effectively, it's free, although you're basically missing a turn.
Right. So if I were to boost the thrust,
Yep.
right?
And you pay 1 and gain 1, which is your same real.
So it would stay the same.
I'm assuming you're not moving it, so that's presumably your turn.
Yep. That's right.
Matt.
So the letters on the cards, right?
Yes.
The goal of that, if I get a factory, then I can flip it over.
Yep. So if you have a factory on an S site, you can make that into this card.
Huh.
But so like this Robonaut, it having a V doesn't mean that it only works on V's.
Yes, it's nothing to do with this side at all. It's just what it turns into. Which means that, for example, this site, because you've got 2 Cs, maybe it's a good idea to build a C factory because you can build both of these on a C site. Which means overall it's going to be more efficient than it would be otherwise. Oh yes, this, as an example, has fractional fuel use. So every burn this goes through, this burns half a step of fuel. The way you record that is you round fractions. So if you went through 3 burns and you burnt 1.5 steps of fuel, that's 2 steps of fuel. So you round them up, essentially.
If I sell a card to somebody, they
If a card that somebody wants, then absolutely.
can I sell a card to somebody if they don't? If they have if they have 4
Yeah.
or more cards in their hand?
Yeah, there's nothing stopping you doing that.
I don't imagine you'd want to buy this.
Not particularly. I'm quite happy as I am, thank you.
I don't. I noticed you didn't have one. So there you go.
You could sell a card to me for 0.
Yeah.
That's
sweet.
true. And yeah, if you can, Dave, you can cycle that to Dayston. To Matston.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's alright.
And then I'll give it back. I don't know.
Well, it's Matt's turn. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right. Fine. I will sell this to.
Yep.
To here then.
Where at?
And then gain 3. Yep.
Let's see.
Make sure you gain 3. I will think about my life and what I'm doing with it. Okay, that's my current plan. So let's sell that one for 3. 1, 2, 3. Go.
Alright. It's my turn already. Okay.
Again, it should
So,
reproach a lot of the time.
so I could boost all this stuff in my hand, but it will cost me.
Yep.
Good bit.
So if I boost the thruster, the reactor, and the
You want to at least one of these radiators. So the radiators, you choose which end to boost them on, because they could be the light or heavy side.
yeah, I think you cut out a little bit. What were you saying?
So when you're boosting a radiator, you choose which side to boost them on.
I choose.
But if you want a
Okay.
working rocket here, you're going to want to have a thruster, at least a thruster, a reactor, and a radiator, because this requires both cooling and the reactor.
Yeah, but I could do the reactor and the thruster and a radiator, and that's it, right?
Yes, I mean you can do as much as you can afford, which is
Yeah.
8 mass worth. But I mean, if you want to do a working rocket out of this, then the reactor, the thruster, and a radiator is the way to
The
do it.
reactor, the thruster.
Probably this
and
radiator, but
radiator.
it depends.
Yeah.
The trade-off
So it's
is-
so it's lighter.
Obviously, that's all good. The downside, of course, is that you don't have the Robonaut or the refinery that you're going to want to be able to make factories and do exciting things
Yeah. So I need more stuff.
eventually. But then that's true for everybody. So the question is it worth doing now? The advantage to boosting something early, like I did, is that you could be potentially gaining these glory tits, which are
The
points.
shits. Okay. Let's see. So what do I need to make? I need like a refinery to start harvesting.
You will need something with an ISOU rating to make a claim.
Okay,
which is
so like a robot.
all the Robonauts
Alright.
and sometimes crew, but normally Robonauts. When you then have a claim, you need to get to the site. The industrialized operation is decommissioning a working Robonaut and refinery with all their supports. So you could be decommissioning a lot of cards to make that work. Oh no, that's all right. And then if you do that, then you make a factory. So eventually the goal is, yes, have one of these, have one of these. The downside is refineries tend to be heavy
yeah.
and tend to be like a dead end. They're just payload, you know.
The refinery.
Yeah, so other than needing them for a factory, they don't tend to do anything, at least at this stage.
So I need to boost the refinery onto my ship while I'm still on Earth.
You would need
Right.
to in some manner you would need to carry that through space to the site that you have a
I
claim
think
on.
you cut out.
Yeah, so at some point you would need to carry it through space to the site that you have a claim on. Yes. So
Okay.
either you are making a massive rocket that has a working Robonaut and a working refinery on there, or you're sending out a rocket with a Robonaut on there to find good sites, and then later on maybe leaving the Robonaut on there and then coming back and then sending a refinery to catch up with it.
Okay. So first I need a robot to do the refinery, right?
You need a Robonaut to make a claim, and then you need, or at least you need something with an ISOU rating to make a claim, which is probably a Robonaut.
Gotcha. So I'll do this robot not.
Okay.
That happened every single time.
It has.
Jeez.
That's right. So how much are you bidding?
I bid 0.
This will be 2 cards. I can't bid. Everybody else can bid.
Dang. God,
That's all right.
I don't know why I clicked that.
That's all right. The bid is currently 0. I can't bid. It's 2
I mean,
cards.
I'll go up to
To what? 2?
one.
Oh, one.
So this is
Matt?
not an entirely good Robonaut. It's got an ICU 4, which is bad. The nice thing about it is it is mass 0 and a buggy, so it can be very useful in some situations, like comets.
I will bid. It's at 2.
The bid is currently 1. You can make it 2 if you like.
I'll make it 2.
It's 2. Anybody else?
I'll bid 2.
Ooh, bid is currently 2.
Anyone else?
Advance is on 2. It's gonna
So
be
you say
D4.
it's good for
So ICU
Comets.
ICU4 is the worst. So ICU4 is going to be limited to sites with 4 water droplets. So if you look at, so it might, I mean, it will do Mars. It will do sites like this, which have 4 water droplets, but you won't be
I'll
able to use
do
it.
3.
So bidding 3 currently, I think.
So wait, were we finished what you were about to say about the
Yeah.
they could get these?
So the ISIU rating determines what sites are viable, what sites you can claim and do other things to. You need to have
Yeah.
ISIU of the water droplets or lower. So ISIU
Gotcha.
4 is the worst, and therefore only the wettest sites are available to prospect with that Robonaut.
With that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the advantage, so it's not a good Robonaut inherently, but it does have
Yeah.
mass 0, which is really good. And the fact it's a buggy means it gets a rerolls is also good. So, you know. And
Yeah, I'll bid. So I'll do 3. Oh wait, what?
Yeah, I said 3.
I said 3. I'll match it.
so
Okay.
currently on 3.
Here, just have to watch.
Matt or
Um,
Dave.
I'm good.
Okay.
So are you winning on 3? Is that the gun?
Yeah.
I said 3. So if Matt wants to
Yeah.
do 4,
nope. Sorry. I passed.
So take that for 3, and that one for 3. Do pay attention to this card and the ability on that card.
did someone just join?
I think rejoin.
Oh.
Right.
And then that was 3.
And you pay 3, yep.
3.
And that's the end of your turn.
Okay.
So we move this. We're now in the red sector. So there's no event roll because it's every 2 turns. Because we haven't
Yeah.
passed the threshold, but it does mean the radiation's a +2.
Yeah, it sucks to get out of Earth.
Nice.
Especially if you've got a very weak Radhar thruster like this one. Right, Days Go, I believe. You're already on Days Go.
So
No,
uh, I'll go 0 for this.
Interesting. So I can't bid.
You
Anybody
said
else?
0?
Yep, currently 0.
Yep.
I can't bid on this, so up to you.
Bid 1.
Oh, dang. That's interesting radiator.
Alright, so I'll bid 1.
So that's one that you can bid on it. You can put it on its heavy side, but when you've used it once, then it gets flipped to its light side.
Dave?
Is it just a 1?
That's. I mean, are you? I don't know if you're matching.
you want
or-
it?
I'll match the. I'll match 1. It's pretty good. I mean, it's a pretty good card.
It's pretty good,
That's
Matt.
the type of card you want.
You definitely want that in your ship, Matt. I don't know.
Depends on what my plans are. I think I'm feeling fine. I don't know.
Some pretty good bling. I'll pass.
You won't see a rad card like that. Yeah.
Pretty rare. It's the blue eyes white dragon of radiators. Or what is it, Robonauts?
This is the Robonaut, this is the Radiator. Put on what you're talking about. I don't.
Yeah, I passed.
Is that me getting it for 1?
I believe so. And this Radiator.
Not the plan. Twitch radiator?
Yeah, that one. Right. Obviously pay 1 for that. So that's, I mean, you will make a profit on that. Do pay attention to that radiator. The radiator, if you boost on its heavy side, if you use it once, so if you use it because a Robonaut requires it to prospect or a thruster requires it to move, then you flip it to its light side. So it's like a one-time use. It's very efficient, but it's like a one-time thing. So it's quite difficult to use, but it can be nice to find a situation where you can do something which then propels you out somewhere crazy, for example.
That's
Whoa.
Right, that was Days Go, I think. So you wanna, yeah, there you
Alright.
Put up for 0.
go. Ooh, what bid? I can't bid, so whatever.
yeah, I can't.
I can. What is this, a refinery?
It's a refinery, which
Yeah.
will come with this generator.
Huh. Let's do it. 1.
Tier 1.
You match it?
Yes.
Two.
Alright, I'll match you too.
Oh boy. Wait, so what do refineries do again?
When
They
you,
let you like
They
mine.
build
When you
the-
have a claim.
They let you build the factory
Yeah.
when you have a claim.
Let you build a factory and you have a claim. All right.
so you will absolutely want to have a refinery at some point. It doesn't have to be this one. You
At
don't-
some point.
You don't have to die on this hill. Right.
Right. That's,
Wait, so what am I at? Two?
yeah, that's
What
what
are we
here.
at? Two? And you match my two?
Yes.
You know what, Matt?
What?
I'm gonna let you have that one. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Right.
So generous.
So obviously Matt loses two, and Matt loses two because your turn, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to free market this reactor. Let's see if I completely screw this up. Nope. There we go. Should probably just maybe move these further apart, to be honest. But
Yeah.
right, that's me done. So your turn.
I just
Once
want
I
to keep
ha-
buying cards. I don't know what I'm like. Just
Once I
getting
have
stuff.
once I have a radiator in Leo, I can't switch it to the heavier side.
Oh no, we lost Dave.
Did everybody get kicked out or just me?
That's just you.
Yes, yeah. If I have a radiator in Leo,
Yep.
I can't switch it to the heavier side, can I?
No, you could. So you can decommission as a free action. You can decommission cards whenever you like. So
Alright, and then you
can
put it back up.
and then you release it. Obviously, you've just paid the money to put it up there, so you may not want to do that, but you can. The only one you can't do that with is crew, unless you
Okay.
can commit felonies.
Don't.
This is gonna be heavy if I throw this up there.
So, the pink and the triangle, the bottom left, that's
Yes.
good, right?
You want high numbers on
So-
the left and low numbers on the right.
And what it does.
So the one on the left is your thrust, which would be how many burns you can move through during a turn, and you'll take you off and land you on sites. The number on the
Okay.
right is how much fuel you're going to spend every time you move through a burn. So one's
Right.
really
How
good.
much?
This is a very powerful card, except that it requires awkward reactors and it has very low rad hardness. So unless you're either going to be very slow or very lucky getting through, especially these radiation belts here.
Sorry, say that again. You cut out. So it's got really high rad hardness.
It's got very
'cause
low
that's
rad
6.
hardness because 0 is very low. 0 is quite a low
Here's
number.
that.
Oh, 0. I see.
Yes.
I do have a generator that has 6 though, and I could put that on there, right?
Yeah, but they won't add this component will be just decommissioned anyway. So
True. All right. This has
welcome back, Dave.
good.
Yeah.
So if I
here's-
boost right now.
Yep.
If I boost right now, I could put out up to 5 cards because I have
You
5.
total up your mass, and you're paying 1 aqua per point of mass. So
So I
this
have to
one
pay
you boost for
1
0,
aqua.
This one you boost for
point of
0.
mass.
This you boost for 3 or 4, depending on which side you boosted on. This boosts for 1 or 2. This boosts for 2, 2, 2. So 2, 1, 2.
So my thing is I probably want if I boost all on one turn, it reduces the amount of money
Absolutely.
or the amount of aqua Dave gets, right?
Completely.
So I kind of want to line it up.
Yeah. And obviously you don't have to worry about your hand size like everybody else does. So
Yeah,
you
so I
can
might
afford
as
the
well
ones.
just keep. All right, let me see.
So it is worth
All
noting
right.
that if we get to blue and we get anarchy, you lose your faction privilege. So and you lose your faction privilege for
Oh my god.
until this is out of the blue sector. So potentially you could here go to anarchy, and then you could therefore suddenly have a hand size until we get here.
Ah,
Worth
what
bearing in
happens
mind.
to all my cards?
Well, you just can't research anymore, or you can't participate in research auctions.
Oh, okay.
You don't lose anything. It's just you could well get yourself in a situation where you're stuck. So just be aware of that.
So I might as well splurge now.
Not necessarily,
I got
because I mean it's only. You know. But it depends on what you want to do.
Okay. I want to do this refinery out here.
Mhm.
See, right there.
So you're researching that, yes?
Yes.
And how much are you bidding for that?
A total of $0.
I will bid 1. It's only you and me who can bid on this, so 1.
1.
2.
Hmm.
Yep.
Oh,
I'll do 2.
I will go to 3.
Do you have a refinery?
I do not have a
No.
refinery. Lost Dave again.
What do you have? What's your generator? So you're going to 3.
Pretty nice generator.
Mm-hmm. It's not. It's a horrible generator. The reverse isn't
Really?
awful. Yeah, it's terrible. Well, it's solar modified, which is normally minuses, and it's another -1, so it's really not a good generator.
But it has minuses?
Yeah, it's got a -1 to its thrust, and then also solar mods, which are normally minuses.
Why does it have a -1 to its...
I mean, why mechanically? Because it says on the card. Why thematically?
No. Where does it say on the card that's -1?
So the black triangle modifies. So if this was the thruster, it's thrust 5, and then this modifies it to -1 because it's -1 by
What are we looking at?
my generator here. This one.
Oh, I wasn't looking at you.
Oh, well, that's why then. That's
I was looking at this one.
no. That's all right. That's actually pretty good.
Minus.
Yeah. I was like, what are you talking
No,
about?
that's
That's
great.
a bad one. That's...
That's fine. I mean, it does require a reactor and cooling and everything else, but yeah. So what were we bidding on? Where were we?
You said 3 for this.
Are you going to 3?
I'll take the 3
As in,
from you.
Alright.
Yeah, you
So-
can have it.
thank you. And just that one. So obviously make sure you give yourself 3.
I did.
And that was the end of your turn, presumably? Unless you're... Yeah. So this now... Does this one go off the event? And we are waiting to see if Dave turns up again.
I'm on here, but I can't get back in, or I'm having issues connecting.
I'm sorry, man.
Are you getting a specific error message, or is it...
No, it just keeps kicking me out. And now it's
You are breaking up on Discord as well, so I wonder if it's just
Is
networking in
it?
general. A little bit, yeah.
It may just be like the network here is just all messy.
Yeah.
Let me try. I'll try one more time, but it may just be that at the end of my.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna roll the die.
Yeah, roll the die. Inspiration.
Ooh.
So that's this one. This one goes to here. I'm going to do this perfectly once. Just once. I'm going to do this. There we go. Look at this. And that's all 6. There we go. Magic.
Nice.
Right. We would do these, of course, if we were using these dex cards. But the same thing would happen there. Okay. So yes. So that'd be days go, won't it?
So I think I want to boost, and if I boost, but I still am not gonna have, and I'm not gonna be able to boost enough to actually get me out, right? Like if I
Probably true. Yes.
right, so I'd want to boost this,
So they go into your stack. Yep.
and that's just gonna give me the 1 and 1, and that's even.
That's if you want to do that. You could boost more than one thing at once. So you could boost that and that, say, which will cost you
Which
3,
one?
but then give you 1. The one that's mass 2. I mean, I'm not.
Right.
I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but you'd pay 3 and then gain 1. You end up on 1. But the point is,
Right.
it's that order, so you can't boost for 4 because you've only got 3 available.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like all of these feel like I just need to have more to be able to boost those. Not trying to get like the 1 is doing 1 for free, but it's not worth it for the 3.
Yeah.
So I would just do the 1, and that'll be my.
Okay, so I think that's. If you want to shift the turn to Mika Man, do you want to hit the turn to Dave and then?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's alright. And Dave, you want to turn to Matt? There we go. Magic.
Alright.
Figure out what I'm doing in my life.
You just need to boost. There's a lot of stuff going on out there in orbit. Just be boosting everything you can.
You're selling this. It's good. Right. Let's have a quick think about this.
Yeah, I'm gonna boost.
There we
Yeah.
go.
I'm gonna
That's
boost
the
this.
spirit.
I'm gonna boost this generator, which costs me nothing, and I'm gonna boost this thruster, which costs me 2. So that's all up there.
Okay, so
Okay, ready.
are we with those? Okay, that's fine. Right. Okay, so I'm going to boost for 5,
Okay, and generated.
and I may as well boost Solar Sail as well, just because I'm there. So yeah, Dave, for game 1, Aqua.
Dang. Basically, I could get away with getting something for right now.
I think Dave loses connection again. What's connecting? Oh, well, Dave.
Yeah,
It's
1,000 ping.
Yeah.
At least he was here long enough to get to teach and understand how to play.
Oh, totally. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
Sucks.
I'll take the refiner. For research.
So researching this guy.
Who wants it?
Let me think
I'll
about this.
bid 0.
I'll bid 1.
Matt, you're the only one.
I'll bid 1.
I can bid, but I can bid 0, so it doesn't help.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Formally, I can bid, but it won't help.
All right, I'll bid 1. I guess. All right, let's do 1 and 1.
The ability to hold as many cards as you want seems like a really powerful.
What do you mean? Has like a huge hand.
I think I was. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna sell this generator. Unless somebody wants to buy it from me.
No, that's fine.
Which one?
It's fine.
The phallic one.
Yes.
You
Most
could get rid of that.
Phallic of all the generators, yes. Right. Let me just do some quick calculations while I'm currently here. If I was to boost this guy, I would currently be 0,001 potentially. We're currently red, aren't we? Ugh. Don't want to be red. But I could do... Okay, in any case, I'm going to free market this generator to get 1, 2, 3. And then I think we're ending the turn. These are all
All right.
stack.
I kind of want to boost. So let's see. I only have 7. So
6.
Jesus. There's so much. The mass slows me down, right? Yeah, because of the
It basically makes it less efficient. Is how it really works. Because if your dry mass is higher, then the same number of steps of wet mass is going to give you fewer steps of fuel, and therefore fewer burns that you can go through.
Got
So
you.
it doesn't necessarily. I mean, it kind of slows you down. It's certainly less efficient.
All right. I mean, so this is my only thruster, so that's in there.
Yep.
When I boost,
And you'll want
and then
sun to power it, which is that.
the what?
You'll need sun to power it, so you'll need that reactor, I assume. Because that requires that reactor.
Yeah. It needs 1 react.
It's an
Sure.
X reactor, which is you only got 1, so and you need 1 cooling.
And I need this.
So total, that's mass of 4 so far.
So
Do you want to boost anything
So
else?
then
with
I
it?
need 3. So this is light mass
Yep,
here.
that will cost you 0 to boost, so you may as well put it at the same time.
Yeah.
And you will want to have a generator.
Dang, and I want
So this
I want a
generator,
generator.
yeah, so this generator is 0 mass, which is nice. It also means you don't have to make rolls when trying to enter air brakes. The downside to it is that you can't use it to do industrialization. So you can use it to make a claim, but you can't use it to make a factory.
Oh my god. Really?
Mhm.
Which one does this generator over here also not let me make a factory?
All the other generators will, so that's a refinery, but all your generators will be
Oh.
fine. The point is, this one is the best one for you to boost because it's the lightest, but it has a major downside. This one is incredibly heavy, but does everything. And this one is
Yeah.
is lighter, but also requires radiators, which means that you may need to be heavier. So trade-offs.
I feel like I want to make a refinery right now.
Well, then really, at this
So I
point,
need money.
yeah, you probably need those 2 cards. Is what you want. You probably need the heavy one, I'm guessing. Or,
Yeah.
Or boost another.
So
thing.
I'll need to sell a lot of other things to get that. So I'll probably just sell. So does anyone want to buy? It's these are the 3 that I don't need, right?
If that's
Basically.
that does make sense. Yeah.
If I want to do the refinery. Anyone want these? Or else I'm just gonna start selling them all. Nobody?
I will pay. I'd pay 2 for the radiator.
For the radiator?
Yeah.
Yeah. Take it. And then, so now I'm at 9.
Mhm.
1, 2. So, how much mass is all this stuff here? Let's see. 2, 3, 4. So I still need like 2 mass. So I need 2 more. So I'll sell one of these. I'll sell this one.
Yes. We are
Perfect.
continuing without Dave. So I'll whack those at the bottom of the deck somewhere.
And then what letter do I press to put it underneath?
So if you hold it and then right click, you put it down and you can sort of slide underneath like that.
Got you, right click.
Or so
Right.
while you're holding left click, you right click. Just gonna put those there.
Okay. So now I'm at 12. 2. Boom. Alright, next time. Where did the thruster go?
Which one? Yours. Yours should still be
Yeah.
in your. Where did you put it?
I don't
What have you just sold it?
know. I picked up all my cards. I think they got mixed up. Did it drop?
I mean, if it
Space?
drops, it'll be in the middle of.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Found it.
Okay, so is that all boosted into low Earth orbit? Or are those in hand currently?
Yeah, all these are my hand.
Right. So end your turn.
That's my turn.
So if you move this, and we don't make a dice roll, so that's fine. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to steal one of your cubes just to mark you as a first player. Because you would have been, in sequence.
Yeah. Yeah, now I'm kind of in a weird position where I don't have much money.
Yep.
But I want to get a lot of stuff into Elio.
Yep.
I guess one question that I have is like, when you add in the other modules,
Yes.
do they give more kind of interesting ways to get money and things like that, or is that what they're kind of?
So some, not a huge amount. I mean, later on, it opens up. is the point. So early on, your economy is very restricted, and it's very restricted with buying and selling and to get your income.
Yeah.
The so the interesting. I mean, there's quite a lot that goes into the combination of cards and what you're putting for auction and when you put it for auction, like the tempo and the card quality, is huge. But less so with Bernals, when you have a space colony basically, which is anchored. It's generating money every turn eventually, but that's mid game or late game at that point. And likewise, there are ways of getting funding through politics and other things. One thing politics does is it replaces the income operation with a fundraise operation, which is income plus it manipulates the board basically.
All right. Cool. Yeah, it looks like doing freedom lets you sell 2 cards instead of.
Precisely, but obviously it's true for everybody. So when that becomes the active law, it means that everyone could do that, which may or may not benefit everyone equally.
So someone else might go and like move it back.
Oh yeah, you're fighting over this, and yeah.
That's fun.
Yes.
All right. So this may or may not be a silly thing, but I'm gonna decommission
Yeah.
this to sell it.
Yep. And gaining 3. Okay, so that means I'm going to make this into a rocket. So this is all the stuff that's in Leo. Total mass there is 6. Looks like counting is hard. Total mass is 6. I'm going to dump 3 water tanks. No, I'm going to. Oh, so I actually want to do that because you're currently. Okay, fine. I'm going to do main operation first, income first. So I'm going to gain 1, and then dump 4 water tanks into there. So that's going to happen. This rocket then we are going to be using in my solar sail to start off with. So the solar sail thruster is 0. It's going to be 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1 for my beam power. So I have a thrust of 1. My thrust of 1 is going to take my rocket when I have it. It's going to go to Leo and it's going to go there, and I'm going to stop. And that's my turn.
So now I want to boost and build the big thing.
Yes, probably.
So reactor. Maybe I should put these like sideways or something.
It might build up here if you're doing that. Apart the fact that right is in the way.
Fortunately, we're coming close to the time that I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, no worries. Again, that was the expectation, of course, that we had it was a learning game. So you see, like a lot of the turns should be very quick. Obviously, when you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for sure. It seems like this could go super, super fast. Like, if we play again next Sunday, for example,
The teach was 2
I
hours.
imagine.
Oh, was it really?
Where the-
2 hours? Christ.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it would.
That was a bit excessive.
Yeah. What's that?
If it's 2 hours, I'm sorry, that was excessive. Yeah.
No,
Right. I mean, you probably could have. You probably got through the necessary stuff in about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I think there was about a half hour of questions being asked that like were things that clearly we weren't going to get to today.
Sure.
Which I mean, we were asking those questions, so.
But okay, I'm happy to call it there if you want to. I mean, if you want to. I mean, do you want to move this rocket this turn? Is that? Are you going?
yeah.
To? Well, let's do this. Let's do this.
So I just spent 11 on.
You did.
Do I lose 11, right?
You do.
Because of the boost.
Yeah, because you're turning. Well, you already boosted, didn't it? Or was this boosting this turn? This is boosting this turn, wasn't
This
it?
was the boost this turn, yeah.
So your operation is boosting. So this is now a rocket, which is currently in low Earth orbit. You
This
may or
is the
may not want
thing.
to add your crew to that. It's up to you. But what I would do then, the total mass of this rocket is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
11.
11. So it's 12 if you add your crew. It's up to you. So that
Yeah,
thrust,
why not?
that then goes on 12 if it's with the crew. And
Oh, it goes on 12.
yep, and then you can add one. You've got 1 step of fuel in low Earth orbit, so you could spend another step of fuel to go to 0, and then put that to there. So this is your
Oh.
rocket. You can go through. You've got 1 step of fuel. Fortunately, every time you go through a burn, you're spending 1 step of fuel. Unfortunately, it means you can't actually go anywhere this turn because you can go to where I am, and then there's nowhere else you can go because everywhere else requires a burn. Basically, you can go onto the radiation. It doesn't really help because everywhere else requires
Oh.
at least another burn to get out.
Okay, so
So
maybe I don't add my crew and then I get another.
yeah, so if you don't add your crew, then that will be on 11. Still
I
doesn't
feel
help
like
you.
my crew's kind of useless because they can't do missions.
Yeah, so it helps glitches, which will be a problem, but at this point you're heavy enough that this won't necessarily help you get out. So at this point you probably don't want to be adding, you just want to be this in the Earth orbit, leave the 1 fuel tank in there,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
next turn you're getting water to that. But
Okay.
okay.
So that boosting is my turn, and then
So this would then happen, and then if you roll dice, just for the sake of finishing the round. And 6, which
Oh,
is, so this is a
6.
this is a coronal mass ejection. So what this will do is this will send out a burst from the sun. What actually happens is there's a d6, and then this is modified by the solar roll. So at every one of these areas, it does anything with radars lower than that will be destroyed, which will be bad here. 1 isn't bad anyway. You're immune if you're on a site or you're inside the Earth's radiation belts, so I'm completely safe there. And if you're on a site, you'll also be immune, so it's irrelevant. But it's a thing.
Okay.
So, I mean, happy to call it there. So yeah, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking?
I would love to let Nico and I each send our rockets on 1 burn.
Yeah,
maybe,
sure,
Or
yeah.
one out.
Yeah.
Yeah, by all means,
Because
because you haven't
yeah,
chance to
I
do that
think
yet.
like right. So I'm gonna throw mine out here as well.
Take my thing away.
Let's pretend that I was able to
Yep.
get all of my stuff out that I wanted to,
Totally.
which was going to cost me way more money than I had.
That's it. Yep.
About 12.
You need,
Oh my god.
You need 3
Right.
cooling for that.
Yeah. So yeah, it was like 12, 13 mass to be able to get all that stuff out,
That's the one.
right? And it's
Jeez.
10, 12, 13, 14, 6. It's at a mass of 16.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So that
So,
goes
try and
Oh.
16.
here.
That's nuts.
So let's see where you're trying to go. So, for example, what are you trying to achieve?
I would have loved to have gone to Mars.
Okay.
But
Well, so Mars requires 3 burns, sort of. You might be able to. You don't have the ability to refuel. So yeah, 3 burns is basically what. So 3 burns.
I have a Pac-Man. I can't remember.
Air eating. It's not stupid, but you are quite efficient. So 3 burns times 2 is because we modified by that. 3 burns times 2 is going to be 6. So what you need to do is you would need to have there, and there. So basically, you would need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and more water in low Earth orbit to be able to fuel that. But this is perfectly viable. So now you have your rocket stack. You're choosing your active thruster. So your active thruster is going to be this one. This is your thruster chain. So all the stuff in the chain is what's going to support it. I'm just going to put that there. That requires a reactor, so that one's going to there. This requires 3 cooling, so that's going to be there, right? So these are carried along for the ride. So these are still mass, but this is your thruster chain.
Yeah.
So your thruster chain is currently 3 plus 7 is 10. So that goes to 10. You are then, so you have the option to afterburn, although you don't because you've got no afterburn symbol, so you don't afterburn. Your weight class is where this is, which is currently -2. So your thrust is now 8. And you've got no sonar mods in this chain, so you don't modify by the sonar modifier, which will be 0 anyway.
Yeah.
You do have beam power, so you could ask me nicely to use my beam power to help you, which I will. So I'm going to add 1 to your thrust. So your thrust is now 9.
Where's your beam power from?
My faction ability. The alternative is everyone would have that if they built a factory on one of these sites that has a thing on it. So you would take your dude on Leah, and then do your moving. So the routes to get to Mars, the best routes are either the blue route or the red route generally. The blue route is a bit more energetic, so there's another aero brake. The red route is slower but more efficient. Basically, the red route would take you 2 turns. The blue route will do it in 1 turn, but more energetically. So if we're going to do the energetic route, just for the sake of drama, you would go to this route here, whoops, which is 1 burn. Every burn you take is 2, so you'd move that down following the black line. Yep. You would then follow this radiation. The radiation would be d6 minus your modified thrust, plus 2 because you're in the red, but your modified thrust is 9, so you're going to be completely safe because everything's going to be less than 0, so that's fine.
Okay.
You could then go.
So that again, so it's the roll
It's
minus
this,
my boost.
Yeah, it's d6 minus your net thrust. It says here. So your bout roll is d6 minus your net thrust,
Okay.
and your net thrust is 9, so it's d6 minus 9.
I'm going so fast the radiation can't catch up to me.
Exactly. Well, basically, you're going through banana belts very quickly, so you're safe.
Nice.
And then here, so you're burning again, so another 2.
I guess the idea is like we're spending so little time there that the radiation doesn't.
Well, it's the same as Apollo. The Apollo mission didn't have any shielding because it didn't need it because it was going too far too quickly. But if you was using the solar sail, then it wouldn't do. So follow the blue route.
And that's
Not burned.
Lagrange. So burn there.
Yep.
Right?
So then another 2. And now for the sake of drama, this is the flyby. So that's a free burn. You're going to get a free burn this turn.
Okay.
You can then go on the aero brake. So this is because this is the more energetic route. You're using the Mars atmosphere to aero capture to slow you down. So you're rolling. So you can't. We're assuming you've paid all your money, so you can't afford to pay for this. So you'll be rolling a dice and try not to roll a 1. If you roll the hate die, there's a explosion on it, but up to you.
Okay. Let's roll a die then.
And you survive the first one.
So if I rolled a 1, the entire thing would just blow up.
Yep, everything will be decommissioned. You've then got a free burn because that flyby you spent here. So then you do your next burn to there. And so now you've got a choice of whether you either go this route, which is aero brake to this site, which is 3 water droplets, or this route, which is aero brake then hazard, but to a 4 water droplet site.
And I can't go there because I would need 2 more fuel to be able to go there.
That's it. And you'd also need a thrust that's higher than 10, which you don't have because you're so
And
heavy.
since my guy, the only thing that I brought along that can look for something is this guy.
Yes.
So
you'd have to be the
I
hard
need
route.
to go to I need to go to the hard route.
Yep. So you're aero brake.
So,
So because you're going through an aero brake, that means the site size is effectively 0 on this route, so you can land on this one.
so
But you
again,
need to roll the dice.
Uh-oh.
you said something about size.
Yeah, so because the aero brake effectively makes your size 0, so you can land, even though you wouldn't normally be able to land, you can because of the aero brake. And that would
No.
kill you.
and and that's where the table flip
And that's
button
it.
exists.
That's it. And if it didn't, then you would go on to this one, and then if you didn't, you go to this one, and then you could make a prospecting roll, be rolling equal under 10,
man.
and then, yeah.
So say that, like, I mean, obviously that happened. So, hey, it happened. My rocket exploded, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And now you just go, well, I guess the last, like, 2 hours of collecting and pushing cards back and forth was worth.
Exactly. But that's the point.
nothing.
But that's the reason why you pay for these. Because before the dice
Yeah.
roll, you could have paid 4.
Yeah.
But of course, doing
And
this is 12.
Yeah. Oof, that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then,
So you have a
but then at
chance
the
not to
end,
do it.
yeah. But then at the end, I've got a guy out here. I go and I send my crew out to go look,
Yep.
and then I roll poorly, and that ends up just being a bunch of dirt, right?
Well, at this point, you're trying to roll equal or under 10 on a 6-sided dice.
10.
So
Okay,
you're
so
Which again is the thing about you're deciding how much risk to take. Because yes, if you go to like a size 1 site, then absolutely. Although you can mitigate it with rerolls and things. But a larger size site means you've got to do this.
yeah.
So it's a question of how much risk are you accepting, because it's a race,
And
and how much you can do. You never have to roll dice in High Frontier. You know, it's you never have to suffer any consequences apart from some of the events. But it's a race, so if you accept no risk, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
This, of course, is effectively 50%. having three 1 and 6s, and about 50% of Mars missions historically have failed. By the way.
Well, do we want to get Miko Man's ship
Yeah.
out there? Go see how it fares.
Yeah, sure, by all means.
All right.
Let's assume you have some money.
Oh God.
So this one here. So this is your thruster.
Mhm.
I'm also going to move that out of red because otherwise you're immediately going to die.
Oh, no.
So your thrust is 3, 4, 6, 7, 11. So,
Uh-huh.
so your dry mass should be on 11,
11.
and your wet mass is how much food you're putting into it. So where would you like to go?
I want to go to it. I'm thinking either like a V planet, because if I drop a factory, it'll upgrade all my V cards, right?
Yeah, I can try that. So Vesta's not a bad one, although you don't necessarily have the thrust to do it. So let's see a better V one that's available. What have you got RSIU wise?
Look at.
Not much.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, not a lot. So I'll just grab a site. So you're looking for sites with size with RSIU 4.
Maybe
right?
like a H or a. I don't know.
Yeah, but not ones that are wet enough for what you want to do. That is probably what you actually want to go for, I think, which is not very likely to succeed, but that's wet enough for you to do it. Maybe this one. Right. So, basically what you want to be doing is following the green route, probably. So, green route wise, you're looking at doing 1, 2, 3 burns this turn, 4 burns this turn, and then stopping there, probably. So you're looking for 4
Yeah.
burns. Your thrust is, so your from is 4, so 1, sorry, so everyone you go through there. So you're going to want to go at least there for 4 burns, because every one is 1 step.
Yeah.
You're going to want at least another 1 burn after that, so let's do that. And for the sake of argument, let's do that, just so it won't make it any worse.
Oh.
No, that's probably okay. Yeah, no, that's fine, let's do that.
So because my like thruster is so like it's efficient, right? Kind of because it only needs 1 wet.
Yep, yep. So start your turn. You elect to use this in your thruster in all of the cards. In your rocket, you use this one as your thruster for this turn, which is the only one you've got. Your thrust therefore starts at 5.
Okay. Wait, say that one more time.
So your thrust, you're choosing one of your thrust triangles, which you've only got one, so you're choosing this one. So your thrust starts at 5.
So do I bring this to
Yep,
5?
that goes to 5. You then modify that by the option of spending an afterburn. So you could spend 1 step of fuel to increase your thrust by 1, but don't bother at this point. But you could.
Okay.
You then modify it by your weight class. Your wet mass is in tug, so it's -2, so that goes down to 3.
Okay.
And then you don't have any solar supports in here. Oh, yes, you do. So this requires this. Right. So this thruster chain doesn't require any solar supports because this only uses this, which only uses this. So this, although this has a solar modifier, this is not being used by your thruster, so you won't modify it by the solar mod. So you're only looking at these 3 cards basically for as far as that's going. This is just dead weight essentially. Okay.
Gotcha.
So you can move through a maximum of 3 burns this turn, and every burn is going to cost you 1 step of fuel because of this. So if you whack your rocket figure onto low Earth orbit.
This thing?
So onto low Earth orbit, at which point your first burn is going to be this way. Boop.
Okay.
Oops, or there, which is going to cost you 1 step, so you'd move your wet mass down by 1.
So that's this.
Yeah, the one that says wet. Yep, that's it. Just 1 step. If we're doing the green route,
The one that says wet.
that's the one. Yep. You would then go to this radiation hazard because we're following the green route. So the radiation hazard, you're running a die, and you're minusing 3 from it.
Okay. And so do I do this? The hate
Either way, it
die?
doesn't matter because the hate die is just the explosion is 1, so it's just a cute die. So you're at 0. So if you had any cards which had rad hardness of less than 0, then they would be destroyed. Obviously, you can't have that, so that's fine. So you're just okay. If you'd rolled 4, you would have lost this card.
I would have to discard this.
You would be to your hand, yeah. It would be decommissioned. That's the problem.
Okay.
You then go that guy, which is 1 more burn, so 1 more step of fuel goes down.
More fuel
So
goes
that goes,
down.
yeah, so the wet mass goes down by 1. You then
Got
go
it.
through this Lagrange point, which means you can leave in any direction for free. This is the Grant point, any direction for free. This burn, which is another step of
I
fuel.
gotta burn it again.
So one more, which is the maximum number of burns you can do this turn.
So then I'd have to wait another turn.
You can keep going, you just can't enter another burn. So you can keep going all the way up to here, for example, but not enter that pink space there.
Mm.
And then next turn, you can go through, you'll recalculate, and you'll be slightly lighter because you're off your tug mouse, but you can then go through there, and then you'll be able to go through here, maybe change direction here, try to land here, and try to prospect things.
So yeah, then my next turn, I could burn those.
Yeah. And you'll be trying to roll a 1, you have a reroll, it's not great odds, but, you know, that's the combination you're going for. So.
And I have to get there before the blue thing ends, right?
Yeah, because of the combination, but that's going to be soon anyway, essentially, so you would have time to get
Gotcha.
there in the blue.
Alright.
You can leave whenever, it's just you can't enter it in the blue. Not blue.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's your thoughts? What are you thinking?
It's a lot,
It is a lot.
but it's cool. Once you figure it out, I feel like it could be. I like the bidding.
Yeah, it is a lot, and the margins are really thin. You do. There's a lot more going on here than it seems to first appear. You know, there is a lot of things where it actually matters about what cards people are taking and taking cards before they do, and bidding them up on things and managing the tempo.
Yeah.
All kinds of things like that. It is.
I think for sure, like if you know what the cards are valued by other people, you can definitely manipulate
100%.
this game way.
Yeah.
And also, like if your opponents don't know like how much value they'd get from something, or if they wouldn't get, like that's kind of hard to make them a bid or whatever.
That's it. I mean,
Yeah, I
it
feel
is.
like-
Yeah, go on.
I wonder how you feel at the beginning of the game. It felt like we were maybe paying a lot of money at times, and so a lot of our money was ending up in the bank. Or no?
I mean, yes and no. Again, it's really, you know, 1, 3, and 5 are the guidelines for 1, 2, and 3 cards. That's. Yeah, no, I think it's right. I mean, yes, there were suboptimal things clearly, and yes, the combination. I mean, like this combination of cards is not a particularly good one. I think. I mean, it's fine, but it does mean that, you know, you were looking for a very wet V site somewhere which you don't necessarily have. This is probably better to do Mars, even though it's not even though Mars is a C site, because it's still a 0 mass Robonaut, which is useful. But there's little things like that.
It just gets me. It gets me somewhere.
Oh yeah,
you know?
completely. Oh, I mean, it's like Hyphen is really hard, right? This is just like 100%. It is a very, very hard game to play, and that's. I mean, I think that's the appeal.
It's funny you say that because like. I feel like this makes a lot more sense than like Origin.
So
right?
It does in the sense of I think it is more direct. So like
I'll be right back.
That's right. So this is probably my favorite game ever, and the reason why is that it manages to be this incredibly tight competitive game at the same time as being a real simulation of spaceflight.
And also being a little silly at the same time.
Oh, totally, 100%. I mean, there's whimsy. I mean, that's. I mean, Phil. I mean, Phil's games are full of whimsy, like Megafauna. Like the fact you're making those animals that have heads and tails of different species and things, and it looks ridiculous. But that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these 4 things are just there to like throw it in your face and just be like, by the way.
But it's going to happen.
Do not take this. Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is absolutely going to be. There's going to be like you smash the Mars. We're going to nominate you for this. You know, you're going to get the points for it. Yeah, that's exactly what it's for. But yeah, it is. Yeah, that's the thing. It's. I think it is straightforward in the sense that it's obvious to see what you're doing, but actually trying to pass this is insanely difficult. There's an awful lot going on.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like in some ways, if I kept putting up stuff to auction that other people want, in some ways the game would go a lot faster, right? If I keep putting up stuff that I want, then my money ends up in the bank, right?
Yes.
And if we kept just passing money back and forth, when we want to start putting things up into orbit, we have the money to do that. We have the money to be able to take these risks and stuff like that. Whereas, if you keep putting up exactly what you want, and you keep exactly what you want, having to pay for what you want, like that keeps draining money out of the
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a
Mm.
really interesting dynamic where you're encouraged, I think, to outbid other people, as in because you're not spending the operation to do the research.
Yeah.
You can bid one higher, and that does mean that there's this. It can drive things up in I think really interesting ways. Especially because you're bidding on a package of cards, and you may not want the package of cards. You might really want one of them and hate the other two. And then it starts. Yeah.
In some ways, you could almost say like, "Hey, stop bidding on this. I'm gonna buy it, and then I'll sell the other ones to you for
Yes.
0 or something."
Yeah, so negotiation isn't something I tend to do a lot of in High Frontier, but it is a thing. There are strict rules on it now. It is something that there are structure for, and strict things on what you can negotiate and when. I do think it's viable. I do think, especially with higher player counts, it's something that comes into its own, because if I buy a card from you, then I'm giving you a free action. That's
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah, like that. I think the radiator that I bought from you,
Yeah.
you probably would have sold that to me for 1.
Yeah. I think I was just kind of like,
Yeah, you might have
I don't know.
You might have him and hawed about it at 1, but I imagine at the end of the day you would have been like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's because you just want to get rid of cards, and the cards that you don't need, and you might as well get something for it. And then you want to use your actions to do other things.
So to kind of blow your mind for a second, the expansion stuff or the module stuff. So
Yeah.
politics changes the rules fundamentally. So, for example, selling 2 cards for 5 rather than 1 card for 3.
Yeah.
Which again changes the thing.
Yeah.
Equality is really interesting because equality means you cannot research anymore. Instead, you can only get the top card, but you get the top card for 1 aqua. So you're always breaking even. You cannot make money on research, but you get to choose what you want.
Wow.
That's equality.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's maybe some bias is showing there. With Gigawatt thrusters. Gigawatt thrusters are black and purple side, so they start black side, built at a factory, and then you can promote them to the purple side.
Whoa.
To promote cards, you need to the S is the spectral type. So this is built as an S site, but in this case, the promotion. This is a colony at a D site. But some of them don't. Some of them are like colonies at atmospheric sites or colonies at other things rather than necessarily things. They're obviously more powerful. So this one is, it's got a much higher thrust than there. They're a lot more awkward as to how you can feel them. The other side are terawatt thrusters, which are all 0 but loads of thrust onto there. And this is 1 step of fuel to add this number of burns. So this is 13 burns for 1 step of fuel, basically.
Jeez.
Which is how you get out here, fundamentally. Freighters, you build to get them home. This is basically your freighter cube becomes like a second spaceship. But second spaceship, the basically always moves 1, thruster 1. When it's promoted, all of your cubes become freighters, so you can move. All your factories become mobile factories, and they can move around. Burnals.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Burnals are
That's nuts.
space colonies. When you add burnals, when you create a burnal and anchor it at a home thing or at a site, so either on one of these stars or on next to a site, they increase your colonist limit. When your colonist limit increases, you start bringing colonists into the game, and these start coming into your hand. So you don't get to control this deck, but the deck comes into play, and you end up with colonists in play. Colonists give you essentially free actions, kind of, like very specific free actions. So just remember, the engineer colonist, for example, lets you produce another card if that engineer is at a site where you can produce a card. So you can produce, you can do an extra to produce action for free, essentially, at that location.
Anyways.
Promotion ones increase that by 2. Colonists you can also promote in the same kind of way. All the promoted cards have futures on them. Futures are particular requirements that you can do to score loads of points, which are these future stars which do other things. And these have loads of things like creating black holes or smashing a comet into the Earth or all kinds of crazy things like that. Making starships and doing interstellar. You also can build space elevators, which are like this one here, for example. you can co-locate. You may basically end up with a factory here and a site here. So you can end up, if you have a factory here and there, you can then also make it easy to make a factory here, and then you can move between them basically for free, and they double the exploitation value of them. But yeah, that's,
This is a lot, man.
it kind of goes
Gee,
mental, yes. But
Dang,
you know,
that's what it's meant to be.
well, no, yes and no. I think the core game as we're playing is completely what it's meant to be, and the other stuff adds a lot. So far, so I haven't played enough of this edition with all these cards. Certainly before, my personal opinion was that the third edition was bloated, and you ended up with a lot of extra rules without a lot of extra decisions and choices to make. So it added hours onto the game without necessarily adding anything. I think this is a lot better. I think this is an awful lot tighter. It does double length the game fundamentally, or at least it makes the number of cycles 7, not 4. But I mean, we probably should have been. I mean, if you like, the total time of my turns was probably 10 minutes, I think, maybe 15 in the game, because most of my turns were just I know what I'm doing, I'm just doing it, which is perfectly normal because you're learning. But if you imagine that times 4, then suddenly this entire cycle could be, an hour, maybe less than that.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're suddenly looking at these, and it will get faster as the game goes on. So you're going to have individual turns where you've got to think about it, and it maybe takes 5 minutes, but most turns will be a few seconds.
There you go. Cool.
But yeah, no, thank you for that. I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No,
Yeah.
worries.